And we're live. Hello and welcome to the fourth day of the 2026 hexconference.com, the sixth annual Hex Conference. I'm your host, Maddie Allen. We've got a great show for you tonight. Amazing speakers are going to be up here. The prices are looking good compared to where we were a couple days ago. And the Prove X sacrifice just ended 1 minute ago. And so we've got a lot to look forward to. Thanks for tuning in. Hit the like and subscribe.
Got post-chain, post-sec, trying to DCA. Now the world gon' see, bitch already changed the game, which is why the hell you see me DCA in the post-chain. X for 4 years, trying to DCA. Got post-chain, post-sec, trying to DCA. Now the world gon' see, things will never be the same ever since we launched our own thing on our own chain. For Hex for 4 years, trying to DCA. Got post-chain, post-sec, trying to DCA. Now the world gon' see, bitch already changed the game, which is why the hell you see me DCA in the post-chain. For Hex for 4 years, trying to DCA. Got post-chain, post-sec, trying to DCA. Now the world gon' see, things will never be the same ever since we launched our own thing on our own chain. You other Sammy Chicas need to get your crypto coffee to wake up and out of ditches so you go from rags to bitches.
Welcome.
Good evening, ladies, gentlemen, and gentlemen of all ages. And of course, Maddie, thank you so much for having me, brother. How you doing, my man?
I'm doing great. The future's looking bright. People are delaying gratification and hanging in there. We got 50 speakers for this 4-night event that's wrapping up tonight. So yeah, just like really excited about it all, and looking forward to handing the reins over to you for the next 20 minutes for your talk about the Hex and how we beat the SEC and how the future looks bright and whatever else you want to mention.
Absolutely. At the same time, though, feel free to stick around and ask questions if you got them. But I will say, you just mentioned the Prove X sacrifice close. Do we have any official stats on the final of that?
I know that that my napkin math was telling me that there was 14 to 16 million dollars of like user circulating funds that sacrificed, and then there was about maybe 340 million sacrificed by the origin address. So that that sacrifice address for Prove X is I think in the top the top 100 ETH holders. Yeah, so it's kind of a big deal. Yeah.
Dang, that's a good bit. I think my website over here is malfunctioning because it's showing 404 million in USD value, but last time I checked, it was sitting around like 16-ish, somewhere under there. So
yeah, there was a lot of ETH that came in. Over 100,000 ETH came in the past 3 or 4 days. So
wow.
yeah.
Okay.
It looks like maybe the OA is going to control like 75% of the supply or something like that. The I think the number of tokens, since Hex was not accepted for this sacrifice, the number of tokens might end up being 1.5 to 3 trillion total. Whereas you're looking at I think like 120 or 140 trillion for Pulse Chain and Pulse X. So while the price of Prove X might do way better as like the rate of 10,000 per dollar, might do better than Pulse Chain and Pulse X. It's not going to be one where it has a greater market cap than Pulse Chain, whereas Pulse X could reach that someday soon.
That makes sense. But hey, that's another very interesting chapter closed here for us. The sack is over. I guess now we just have to wait and see when the launch is going to be. Last I checked, I don't have any official date for that. Do you?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting that the official end of the sacrifice was like the exact minute of like the last day of the Hex conference. The Hex conference has been on the same exact days for 6 years now, and the fourth day of the Hex conference, that's when Richard has spoken in the past in year 1, 2, and 3. And then on the fourth year, he basically like showed his cards that he has the best lawyers in the world against the SEC. That was on like the fourth day of the fourth Hex conference, and had been like, driving everybody crazy, like, like, what's going to happen? How's he going to respond to the SEC? And he came out and, basically said, or people figured it out real quick. Oh, he's got the same lawyers that helped Elon Musk beat the SEC, and the same lawyers that were involved with the Trump family and everything. And so, yeah, like, I'm saving the last hour here in case RH hops on or wants to release a video. But yeah, I think it's no coincidence that the ProofX sacrifice is ending today. And I'm optimistic with the chatter around Richard asking how much liquidity should be provided. Like, what's the best way to launch a token that trades at 0 for the first day? I don't think he'd be asking those questions on Twitter if he wasn't, and I don't think he would have hinted, hey, this can launch before the protocol is ready to launch, as just a token that gets, connected to the buy and burn later on. I don't think he would have been hinting about those things if it wasn't truly within maybe a week or two, which, sure, it's a meme, like 2 more weeks for Pulse Chain and then
Do you know how many times I've heard that joke over the last like 3 years that I've been streaming? It is a weekly occurrence over here.
Right. Yeah. So
True.
yeah. So like, I think those were technically complicated and like they needed the protocols in the layer 1 ready. Pulse Chain changed from like being a fork of BNB Smart Chain to being a fork of Ethereum 2.0. There were all these like massive developments that had to fall into place, and we're basically on like an external timeline. This timeline does not seem to have external dependencies. So that's why I'm hopeful that we'll see a launch in January. And maybe I'm the only one saying that. Maybe other people are saying that too. But
I'll call you hopeful. Look,
most people are expecting, like by March, I think is what Buck and Dylan said. But yeah, I got my money like this month.
Hey, sooner is always better. And especially when it comes to timing the market, that's a big one for sure. I think RH has been pretty decent at that, not gonna lie. So with that being said, like January would be fantastic, but at the same time, that's not bad. Come on. True. I will say you did touch on a bunch of the stuff that I was going to talk about, whether it's ProofX or the SEC. So if you're ready, sir, I am ready to dive into it.
Please.
Excellent. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to your legal briefing, review, and updates panel. Yes, I know I said the dirty L word, legal. And before you start throwing half full bottles of champagne at your screen and tuning out, I'm here to tell you what we're talking about is top level stuff. We're not getting into the nitty gritty because A, you don't care, and B, it takes a lot of explaining and a lot of nuance that I have gone through and don't wish to try to force people to understand. So what we're going to be talking about tonight is where we've been, where we are, where we're going. And we're going to be looking at what's going on with the legislating bodies, legislation, and any major lawsuits that have been happening. So at the end of the day in this stream, or this even little segment, you should understand what was going on with the markets, where we are now, what's affecting the markets, what's going to be happening in the near future, and how it could potentially affect you along every step of the way. So with that being said, why should you listen to me? Well, I am just some guy on the internet, but also former Coast Guard officer doing law enforcement operations and international diplomacy and law enforcement on that side of the house as well. But more importantly, I really threw my hat into the ring following the SEC and Richard Hart case. Was there in New York City when we packed out a courthouse and even had to go to an overflow room, by the way, and was trying to keep up with all the documents, reading everything line by line, along the entire way. And then I've been keeping up with everything over on the shows that I do, which is DJ Roundtable. So shout out to all the DJs out there. Thank you so much for showing up. And thank you to all you guys for tuning in to the Hex Conference, by the way. This is by the community for the community. So we'd love to put on a good show for you guys. So with that being said, I think first thing we should do is take a good little victory lap. So there is a very, very small and elite group of crypto companies, tokens, founders, whatever you want to say, that have actually gone up against legal pressure and won. Hex is absolutely one of those. Yes, back in early 2025, we did get our absolutely massive win over the SEC when the case against Richard Hart was dismissed. Why is that one important? Well, it's important, A, because, well, It means that either the government didn't have the ability to prosecute it as they were intending to, meaning that is a massive win for the crypto industry because it shows that the SEC or the enforcement bodies at the time were massively overreaching. On top of that, a lot of the issues in that case were actually discussed at length. They weren't officially ruled upon, but they were definitely discussed at length. In particular, sacrifice phases being a large one of those. And well, guess what? We just talked about another sacrifice phase ending today, effectively, like literally 11 minutes ago. So that was one of the big precedents that even allowed Proof X sacrifice to happen. So I know it's a little bit of old news because it happened in January or February of 2025, right along that borderline, if I remember properly. But nonetheless, it is still an absolutely massive win. And as a community, hey, you got into a good project and you're in good spaces that are doing things properly. So that should be a wonderful boon to everybody out there. Only other thing going on is, yes, the dirty Interpol red notice is still up. But guess what? There have been no updates on that. And, well, it doesn't seem like they were going to be. And until we get some, it's pretty much not very effective because guess what? Yet again, we just finished the sacrifice. So it means that despite that, projects are still happening. The token is still doing everything it wants to. Pulse chain is still thriving. Hex contracts are still happening. So all of that is still going on, regardless of anything else going on. So that being said, I am inside of the United States, so I do apologize to the international audience. A lot of what I'm talking about might not be super relevant to you and where you live, but for a lot of us, we do speak not the King's English, but a little bit of American over here. So that is where I focus, and that is where my expertise really is. With that being said, let's get into it. So where have we been? Well, 2025 was a big year. We saw Paul Atkins take over the SEC. Now, this is a crypto show. Why do you care about the SEC? Well, because previously the SEC pretty much was the de facto organization that was policing and enforcing crypto standards, markets, regulations, laws, whatever you want to call it. They took a stance that was very aggressive under the leadership of Gary Gensler to call pretty much all crypto securities and claim it's under their jurisdiction and then aggressively pursue it. We saw a ton of lawsuits at the time, but we did get the change over to Paul Atkins. Just as a quick TLDR for you guys, Paul Atkins actually used to be the head of the SEC back in like 2004 through 2008. And little fun fact, he was originally there when the gold ETFs were introduced to the markets. So is it kind of a coincidence that he's here when crypto ETFs are getting offered to the markets as well? Take it as a wheel. But the big change here was that massive standard changes for crypto in the markets. Crypto no longer deemed as just a de facto security. Additionally, they have not been aggressively pursuing law enforcement action against anybody and everybody that they thought might be stepping over the line. On top of that, their motto really has been, tell us what you're building and we'll tell you how to comply. So under the latest administration and the SEC leadership under Paul Atkins, we've seen a lot of growth in the crypto industry, especially inside of the United States, which has led to a massive boon for the markets overall. And guess what? We're a part of it. I believe there's a little thing called Hart's Law, which talks about how rising tide raises all ships. So that's been part of it for sure. Additionally, because Paul Atkins has been there, we saw executive orders come out from the president himself. We also have seen a lot of memos come out and speeches by the SEC talking about how crypto is being fully embraced and utilized inside the United States. So your enforcement body has completely shifted 180 from being very anti-crypto to being very pro-crypto. Most importantly, one of the biggest things is that Paul Atkins did pretty much go out there and say that, yeah, not all cryptos are securities. And guess what? Most of them are not, meaning that scrutiny from the SEC, you really shouldn't have to worry about it anymore unless you're actually doing something illegal, which is fantastic. So that takes us to another step here. What has changed since the last time I spoke with all you fine people? Well, we actually got some legislation from Congress. Yes, they got off their butts and did their jobs for once. And was it a lot? Not a ton, but at the same time, it's a very important foundation to lay. What I'm talking about is the Genius Act. This was the stablecoin bill, if you will. Pretty much what it did is it established clear rules for payment stablecoins. What this does is it sets expectations for people who have reserves, people who are issuing them, and who's actually going to oversee them. The big change here was that this pretty much took stablecoins from the crypto realm of kind of being this like gray zone about not really sure what to do and actually giving you clear definitions for these things. And what that does is it reduces risk from the marketplace so more people are willing to enter it. since then, we've seen a bunch of massive players from traditional finance get into the space, trying to have stablecoins themselves and also have offerings for you guys, the consumers out there. So, because of that, I honestly believe that you can expect a lot more stablecoin payment services and also implementation of stablecoins in your everyday life as a legitimate money effectively. That is a definition of money, is something that we don't have time to get into now, but that's a big one. So what it does is it means that we have more adoption, we have more clarity, and we have more ways to utilize what, guess what? We've already probably been using. Because if you're in crypto, odds are you've already touched a stablecoin at this point, and especially if you've been in Hex, odds are you made a swap through a stablecoin at some point in your life, and you're going to do it again. So that is pretty much what we have going on as past. There have been other happenings inside of Congress when it comes to bills for crypto, but they haven't made it to the president's desk and been signed into law yet. First up, we have what is called the Digital Asset Market Clarity Act, or just the Clarity Act for short. This one, you don't really need to care a whole ton about, but what it does is actually kind of redefining who does what between the SEC and the CFTC. That's the Commodities and Futures Trading Commission, by the way. So there's been a big debate about whether the SEC or the CFTC should take these things. And well, the SEC was very aggressive in the early days and tried to claim everything. Well, not as much anymore. We're actually going to get some more legal clarity on how these things work. The possible ramifications of this one for you, reality is not that much. What it does mean is that for the marketplace at large, you're going to see more clarity about who does what and how they treat these things. So more clarity means less risk in the marketplace. Less risk in the marketplace means more people are willing to get into it. And further adoption of crypto, I happen to think is a fantastic thing because, again, the rising tide lifts all ships. Last piece of legislation that is still in the works, that is the Anti-CBDC Surveillance Act. Pretty much what this is, they want to prevent a U.S. central bank digital currency. This is a topic in and of itself for another day entirely. However, a CBDC theoretically is a cryptocurrency or an imitation cryptocurrency that is created by a central agency or entity that is responsible for all of the controls on it. I happen to think that a CBDC is pretty much an ultimate poison pill. And once it's in the market, it's going to be very, very hard to remove it. And you could theoretically see a lot of nasty controls put on these things about how you use your money, who you can send it to, and even how much you could potentially have. So the anti-CBDC bill, if you're pro-crypto, pro-DeFi, I happen to think it's something that you would very, very much be in favor of in order to help protect the marketplace and protect people from a very corruptive type of currency. Alrighty. Lastly, what else do we have to look out for? Well, we've been throwing around tax ideas for a long time, and well, they've been starting to get picked up by people that can actually implement these changes as well. So your taxes on crypto, or specifically the gains on crypto taxes, these are otherwise known as capital gains, those could potentially change in the future. Nothing is hard set out there right now, but at the same time, a lot of people are talking about it and how to effectively utilize it. One of the big ones on this one is that TradFi is in crypto now. Guess who really likes using tax advantages to their best and fullest extent? Yeah, it's the big guys that are making millions or billions of dollars. So odds are we are going to see some changes potentially in 2026. But just remember, if it happens in 2026 from the legal stance, odds are it's not actually going to apply to you on your tax bill until the next calendar year effectively. That's pretty much how these kind of things work. So with that being said, why you should care about it? Well, it means that there's a good chance you might end up paying less in crypto taxes in the near future, not just the overall tax rate, but the way that you do it. Right now, as it stands, you pretty much are taxed on any taxable event, which is effectively any token swap, whether you're going from a stable to a token or from one token to another. Those, the idea of reducing taxes are the amount of taxable events on those things, so that you kind of go to a net view of, okay, how much did you make versus lose versus how much did you make or lose on each individual transaction that you have to track all along the way, put into your taxes at the end of the year that odds are you might not be able to fully understand, or the person reviewing your taxes might not be able to fully understand, or even that tax professional. Because guess what? There are not a lot of tax professionals out there that really understand crypto and how to utilize it to get your most benefit. That being said, that is pretty much at a glance the vast majority of stuff that's going on. The TLDR for this is that crypto's really turned over a new leaf, especially when it comes to the legal standpoint. A lot of lawsuits have been dropped by the SEC because they thought that they were just unnecessary or way too aggressive in the past. The space for crypto to grow inside the United States in particularly has expanded massively. there is an encouragement of innovation now. There is an encouragement of people to actually utilize these things and offer them to their customers. Fun fact, a lot of traditional finance managers have actually been encouraging or starting to encourage their customers to view Bitcoin and other crypto assets as a legitimate part of their portfolio. So again, is this hex related necessarily? Not especially. Outside of that one massive win over the SEC, hold on to that one. We will continue to run victory laps on that one in particular. But back to the enforcement. Enforcement's getting easier, innovation is being allowed and encouraged, and the overall marketplace is maturing to see these things not just as the funny meme coins with the dog on them, but legitimate functions of currency. Whether it's Bitcoin as a store of gold, Ethereum as your effective crypto gas or oil for the space, and all the smart contracts, or all of the alternative coins out there that are providing legitimate function use cases for you as a consumer. And yes, I'm specifically looking at Hex on that one. Hex and the staking aspect of it are a fantastic way to use time-delayed gratification to your benefit and compounding interest from that standpoint as well, so that you can actually preserve your purchasing power into the future and potentially even increase it through sound investment. Outside of that, bills going on with Congress, we have the Genius Act, which was the big one that we really cared about. Outside of that, keep an eye out for anything else that's going to be coming down the pike when it comes to crypto regulations. The Clarity Act and the anti-CBDC bill, they're neat pieces of legislation, but they're not going to affect your life all that much. But odds are you will be hearing about them, especially if you follow crypto news, because they passed the House, but they have not passed the Senate yet. Once they get through the Senate, and if they match the House bill, they go to the desk of the president, and from there, they will be signed and put into law. And then additionally, outside of that, keep an eye out for any tax rules that might be changed in the near future. But as of right now, odds are you're not going to be seeing any of that in 2026. But additionally, keep in mind, the big win over the SEC and all the stuff going on with Richard Hart and the other products has not affected the ecosystem and its ability to continue to innovate and launch new projects like ProveX. So, by the way, hats off to all you guys that did sacrifice for that, or all the people that are planning to purchase the token upon its release. All this stuff is absolutely made possible because cryptocurrency as a whole is absolutely moving forward into the future. And, well, as we say, Hex users unaffected. Alrighty, Maddie, that is about all I got, good sir.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for speaking again this time. And where can people find more of your content?
Folks, you can find me over at the DGen Roundtable, where we stream Wednesdays, Fridays, and Sundays, 8 p.m. Eastern time. And additionally, our second channel, Walk the Block, Navigating Digital Finance. That is more of a compact, just the sauce show that we do on Mondays at 8 p.m. Eastern time. And we also have a private Telegram group over there for the folks that want to get in there, get a little more hands-on service when it comes to understanding what's going on and helping you guys build a strategy. That is what I got, though. Maddie, it has been a pleasure as always. I can't wait for all the rest of the stuff coming on tonight. And who knows, we might even get the fabled Richard Hart appearance or video as well. So I'm looking forward to all that. Good sir, thank you so much. I hope you guys all have an excellent evening.
Thanks so much, Zenith. Up next, we have Nerd Girl 007 after this interlude.
That's a Hex flex, making money, yeah, we going by the X's. Yeah, Hex, all we know about is excess. Turn a Fiat on ramp to an expressway. That's a Hex flex, hey, that's a Hex flex. Making money, yeah, we going by the X's. Yeah, Hex, all we know about is excess. Turn a Fiat on ramp to an expressway. That's a Hex flex, hey. Yeah, we up next. Shut up with that scam mess, cause we up in Hex. They showed a lot of disrespect, now they can cut the check. They had a lot to say, well now they can't say nothing else. They had some gains, things changed, now it's nothing left. Hey, money went into some means, ended up and left. Hex is up and to the right, they up and to the left. Hey, looking.
Hey, welcome.
Hi, how's it going?
Great. Yeah, so excited for your talk here. You're gonna spill the tea about Hex and Pulse Chain. So
Yep.
I'm looking forward to it, and I'll let you go ahead and take it away here.
Wait. Before you let me go, okay, I want you to confirm two things. Number one, I found out about that I was doing this presentation on Monday.
Yes.
Number two, you told me that it was going to be 40 minutes instead of 20 minutes a little over 24 hours ago.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay, so if I'm not like, the presentation is incomplete slightly, but it's still good. And
Well,
oh,
it's greatly appreciated.
and well, so this is my excuse. All right. And so you also made me some promises, and one of them was that if there are like good questions that come up during the recording, you'll like put them up on the screen so that I can answer them to expand the amount of time. At the end, I'll take any questions if anybody has them. Right?
Yeah, perfect.
Cool, cool,
I'm
cool.
at your
Thank you.
service. Yep. All right. Thanks.
All right. Let me share my screen. All right, so you can see this. Trying to figure out how to position it correctly. I don't know how to make it. Wait. Yes, full screen. All right, I got it. Can you guys see it? All good? Yep, it's there. Okay, so my presentation today is going to be spilling the tea on Hex's early days, and I am Nicole Grinstead, also known as Nerd Girl 007 with no vowels. How do I change the page? Oh, this is an overview of topics that I'm going to discuss. It was really just for my benefit as I was creating the presentation. We don't need to go over them all. All right, so hi, I'm Nicole, also known as Nerd Girl 007. I come from an academic background. I'm a mom. I worked in retail arbitrage. I was a journalist. I founded and ran a crypto PR department for a venture studio, and I am a producer. I've interviewed crypto celebs like Richard Hart and Craig Wright and Peter McCormick, Roger Ver, anybody, a lot of people, Brock Pierce, Michael Turpin, a lot of people who were, main characters in the 2020-21 era, 2019 to 2021 era. People ask a lot when I do these presentations, because not everyone knows me, why I'm dressed like this. Why am I wearing a tiara and crazy jewelry and in this pink fuzzy chair? And the answer is, I used to do a show on Discourse Syndicate called Building Bridges, where I would attempt to make peace between the Hex community and other warring communities, or sometimes between individual members of the Hex community. And during that time, Richard was streaming all of the time, and one of his streams said, the reason that a lot of crypto presentations don't get the viewership that they deserve is that people don't put enough into their appearance and their background. And he would, he had this beautiful throne chair and wore flashy jewelry and all kinds of, things like that. So I asked myself what the female equivalent of that was, and went around my house collecting all of the sparkliest jewelry that I could find, and put some effort into finding the beautiful things that I could put in my background. And the next stream that I did had 5 times more viewers than anything else that I had ever done before that. So I stuck with it. All right, let's see. What else do I want to tell you? Yeah, okay. So I got into crypto as a journalist in 2019. I worked for several publications, but primarily one called Crypto Coins News, or CCN. It's still around under new ownership now. I told you that I founded the PR department for a venture studio. I ran that department as the chief communications officer for 3 years before my famous crash out. And I still do some PR work and business development for that company, but my primary job now is that I am a producer for the Paul Barron Network, and I handle his bookings and some social posts. Dude, the market has been terrible for several years, and I actually need more work. So if at any point during this presentation you're like, oh my God, she's so great, I want to hire her, get talk to me. I can be kind of picky because I can't do anything that I'm gonna hate or I'll crash out. All right. Let's see. How do I turn? Okay, there we go. Okay, trigger warning. All right. So for those of you who don't know me or those who do, I am I'm a famously heretical personality. At one time, I was the most controversial figure in the Hex community. Some of my presentations at this conference have been some of the most criticized, the most loved, and the most hated. You should know that this presentation is not going to provide any educational value whatsoever. So if that's what you're looking for, pause it for the next 40 minutes or so. Also, I'm I'm not a strict profit maximalist, but I am inclined toward profit taking or profit maximalizing. Like I'm not above, if I buy some, like I'm a hodler, mostly long-term or long swing trades. But if I see the opportunity to take significant profits on my investment, I take it. And I have no qualms about that. And some people in the Hex community hate that. At least they used to. But just letting you know up front that that's the deal with me. So too far. Okay, so let's get into outrage marketing. All right. So the origin story of the outrage marketing. So a lot of people really think that the outrage marketing started somewhere near the top when Richard started buying, tons of Rolexes and fancy designer wear, like the picture that he's twerking in, like Gucci tracksuit he's twerking in. But that's actually not true. So, having been around since somewhere in the beginning, I can tell you, and as a PR professional, uh, and a journalist, I can tell you that for certain it started before Hex launched. Richard posted controversial takes on purpose. I asked him once if the tribalism directed against Hex was an intentional part of his grand marketing plan, and he did deny it. But I don't believe him. Just based on everything that I saw at the time, it didn't happen. Or that did happen. It was intentional. There's just no way that someone with the marketing background that Richard has would have not seen that outcome. Richard says he now regrets the outrage marketing, which I know a lot of community members really agree with. I don't, though I didn't necessarily care for Richard's brand of outrage marketing. I felt like maybe it took it a little bit too far. Outrage marketing is incredibly effective when you are working on a project that you can drum up publicity that is free. And we can, amplify that by with examples from early media coverage of Hex, just calling it a scam. Okay, so let me tell you exactly how media works. And this is changing because the whole way that we view media is changing. Oh, by the way, can you see me or just my screen? Yeah, you can see me. This is my tea and I'm going to spill it. All right. So, there were articles in various news publications that were outright calling Hex a scam and Richard Hart a scammer. This gave Hex a ton of attention, right? So influencers started picking up the story, and because one reputable site had said it, another said it, and then top tier influencers said it, and then the mid tier and low tier influencers just grabbed onto the story because people they trusted said that it was true, and because it was popular. you know, that was what was gaining lots of views and lots of likes. Hex was absolutely created as, how can I say this? With a religious construct. So anybody who doesn't know, Richard comes from a Jehovah's Witness background, and it shaped how he thought about cryptocurrency. He was certainly aware that cult brands are the most effective long-term marketing efforts and or with results, PR results, and the outrage marketing started at the beginning. Like I said, Richard now regrets it. Perhaps he, you know, took things a little bit too far, but I wish that to some degree that outrage marketing would come back. Oh, you know what? I want to go back to the disclaimers. Oh, self-aggrandization, because I didn't go into the self-aggrandization. So while I was doing building bridges and super involved with Hex community content creation and promotion, I can admit now, and like a lot of people would criticize me for being like self-important, having an aggrandized view of myself and my importance to the community. And it was true, at least to some degree. When I stepped back, I saw it in other people and recognized that streamer syndrome is a real thing. Especially like the more popular you become, everyone develops everyone has an ego, and that becomes more developed over time. So, but that said, like, I'm gonna toot my own horn a few times during this presentation, just because I am a part of the original Hex lore, and I'm allowed to. But I did realize, you know, I was humbled and want to acknowledge that. Okay, so sacrifice. I told you that Hex and Pulse Chain were rooted in theology. So the idea of sacrifice is also rooted throughout religion, throughout theological history. People think that sacrifices started with Pulse Chain, PulseX, the community sacrifices, Liquid Loans, Mantra, etc., Mr. Proof most recently, but that's actually incorrect. So the AA, so it really started with the AA lobby. And the question that everybody, all of the critics had to ask Richard and the community, where did the ETH go? I admit that the first time I talked to him, I asked that question too, because everybody told me to, and I thought I should. His answer sufficiently told me that the answer, the real answer to the question was you traded your ETH for Hex, which that makes sense. That's how it would work. You know, you were buying Hex with your ETH. So anyway, I want to prove that this is true, that the sacrifice really began with the AA lobby. So on December 1st of 2019, Richard tweeted, "You have about 22 hours left to sell everything for ETH if you want to join the AA system with its launch tomorrow. 1 billion Hex are available tomorrow, only 500 million day 2, and it reduces from there. Here's a link for a 10% bonus via referrals." So, you know, I hope that this demonstrates that that what I'm saying is true. But yeah, like I said, like I'm totally open to people commenting about flaws in my logic or anything that I'm moving out, or also to say that I'm right. That would be fine. But yeah, please, like, you know, bring it. I like to fight. All right, media scam accusations. I didn't get to creating this slide, but before the AA lobby started, there were accusations that Hex was a scam and Richard Hart was a scammer. And I know this because at the time I was working for a crypto publication, CCN. The editors would post topics in our Slack board that told us what we were supposed to do, like, you know, what the writing assignment was. And very often they were like kind of neutral, but sometimes they weren't. And one time, the assignment was to write a scathing takedown of Hex and its creator, Richard Hart, as a scammer. So I saw the post and I asked, I didn't really know anything about Hex except for that it was getting a lot of attention on social media at the time. But I saw that post and responded because I never like being like, if you're a journalist, right? A proper journalist, you're not supposed to start with a preposition or receive a mandate for um, the outcome of your story. And I didn't like being told what to think before I had even had the opportunity to do the research. So I wrote back to the editors and said, "Hey, what if in the course of my research I discover that Hex is not a scam, or I believe that Hex is not a scam and Richard Hart is not a scammer?" And they said that is not an option. So I can absolutely confirm that someone paid or otherwise incentivized crypto media outlets to publish hit stories about Hex and Richard. I cannot confirm who sent those in or who incited those. I, theorize that perhaps it was Richard himself, but that's not an accusation. That's just a theory. And then, like I said before, the way that a PR campaign works is they get a company to publish it, big name media company who people trust. They get, a couple of influencers, big names to do that. And then after that, big names, medium names, small names, they all follow suit. That's how this system works. Okay. So, talk specifically about Tone Vase and the attorneys attacking Richard. The Bitcoin Law Review was published on December 5th of 2019. And in this 6.5-hour interview, Tone Vase is sitting and talking with attorneys about all of the ways in which Hex is a scam. Richard joins the conversation for parts of it. It is worth watching if you have, 3 hours and 15 minutes, because you can watch it on double if you want. I would check it out. All right. I'm not in order at all because I just didn't have time to reorder everything. But Uniswap and Matcha delisted Hex, or made it so that you had to enter the contract address to buy Hex. What's really ironic about this is that Uniswap, Hex made Uniswap popular, and that was always the claim. The question was whether or not that was actually true. And as someone who is there and has studied it extensively, it was true. When Uniswap stopped, or when Uniswap stopped working for Hex, Richard started promoting Matcha. Matcha gained a ton of popularity as a result, and then Matcha followed ship with Uniswap. It was these allegedly decentralized exchanges shouldn't have the ability to effectively delist assets that are performing the best on their chain, or on their platform. I don't know why they would want to, except for to fit in with the rest of crypto. But yeah, so this happened. This also happened at an exchange that I worked for, decentralized exchange that I worked for, the company that was its incubation agency. That's called QuickSwap. I encouraged all, hexagons to provide liquidity on the DEX, and, made a promise that I wouldn't rug pull them, or, that I wouldn't betray them. And then a couple of weeks later, the Hex trading volume wasn't doing very good. People didn't like it. QuickSwap did not delist Hex. They just reduced the rewards significantly. And then because QuickSwap was on Polygon at the time, it still is, but it's on multiple chains now. people had trouble bridging out of Polygon from Polygon back to Ethereum, the hex that they pulled from the liquidity provider positions. And a lot of them thought that they were being scammed. They just didn't know how to operate the bridge because they weren't used to transacting on other networks. So because I had promised that I wouldn't betray the Hexicans, I quit my job to stay like honorable in that position. My boss came back and said, like, no, you can't quit. Let's figure out a way to make it up to the community. So he and I did a live stream on building bridges, where I berated him in front of Mexicans. And it was funny. And, he took it as a great sport. But Hexicans had also made QuickSwap blow up. And it's important to know that that happened and that these are not the only instances of it, but these are just what's in the presentation right now. All right. Crypto market cap suppressing ranking and lawsuit. So Crypto market cap deducted the origin addresses holdings and stake tax from the circulating supply to intentionally reduce the market cap. Even after that, Hex's market cap absolutely soared, and it was stuck. But regardless of how, how well it was performing, how high its market cap was, even without those two metrics calculated in, it belonged on page 1, and Hex was stuck at the top of page 3. So you unless you scrolled all the way to page 3, you couldn't see it, and the market cap of the assets above and below it were much, much lower than the market cap of Hex. So occasionally CMC's code automatically corrected, and Hex would move up the ranks to, number 8 or number 12 or wherever it was before, and it would be an hour or two before someone from CMC manually overrode the code. So it's absolutely certain that that code was manually overrode to keep Hex on page 3. There was a campaign, add Hex to page 1, that a community member who has been missing for a long time, Annette, started. In fact, this phrase and campaign brought Maddie into the community. So Johnny Chaos filed a lawsuit. Some community members pitched in to help fund lawyers so that the Hexicans could go after CoinMarketCap. We're going to get a little bit more into this later, but obviously we, still have some issues with CoinMarketCap, and I'm not sure if the lawsuit is officially resolved or not. I haven't followed up that closely in the last couple of years. Okay. Okay, so Nomics betrayal. All right, so when CoinMarketCap and CoinGecko and most of the crypto mainstream outlets were all suppressing Hex's market cap, Nomics stepped in and was like, we're not going to do that. They listed the full supply, including the stake tax and the OA's holdings. The OA is the origin address. So then in 2021, under pressure because the CMC lawsuit, Nomics recalibrated and listed the supply without the staked coins, but they continued to count the OA's coins. It was on November 9th, 2021. Some community members called this a betrayal because, again, Hexicans had made Nomics popular. And then for them to pull the rug, that it felt like a betrayal to a lot of people. I personally thought it was great because it knocked Hex down from number 3 to number 18. And so still page 1. But I thought, watching Hex climb from the bottom to the top to number 3 was so exciting the first time that would mean we got to all experience that again, and those who weren't there for the first time would get to experience it too. I was wrong. Not, but nomics, no longer exists. I want to make sure that I highlight that Richard Hart himself said that this was fair. He always felt like the origin addresses holdings should be counted because Satoshi's holdings are counted in Bitcoin's circulating supply, despite them being inactive for, 11 years, 12 years. I can't remember how long. But the staked coins could be deducted because those coins are essentially burned, right? Like when you stake your hex is burned, and then when you end your stake, you get it back. Like it's minted again. So those burned coins shouldn't have counted in the market cap. Even Richard Hart acknowledged it. All right. Okay, the God Whale. So the God Whale got into Hex not on launch day. I can't remember exactly how long after launch, but immediately when people saw it, like immediately the chart went up like crazy. And I can't remember how much he bought. He was also like a really benevolent community member. Might still be active. I'm not sure. Like I said, I haven't been following things that closely in recent years, but he was, a really benevolent community member who gave, millions of tokens away, participated in fundraising for a variety of endeavors, and sacrificed funds to community projects because he thought that those would be good for Hex or good for Pulse Chain. I never talked to him. No idea who he is. Some people thought that he was Richard. I kind of doubt that because the Godwill sacrificed to things that Richard was openly critical of. Not that he couldn't have, he's a smart guy, as everybody who knows or has watched any of his stuff knows. He could have orchestrated that. I don't think so. I could be wrong. Absolutely. All right, Ski Cat was another benevolent early Hex whale who famously gave more than 1 million Hex to Crypty Girl when she participated in a Discourse Syndicate stream with a bunch of the early community members. He also gave millions of Hex to Hexologist and other Hexicans, which they then distributed at their discretion. Sorry, I didn't get a picture. I should have. Okay. Prizes, giveaways, and competitions. So that's me. So in the beginning, there were tons of people just like giving 1 million Hex here, giving 1 million Hex there, 100,000 Hex there, 100,000 Hex there. For like people were throwing it around because they wanted to bring new people in. So at one time, Richard Hart posted, I'm sure it was funded by someone else, but he posted an ad. This was right before Big Payday, by the way. He posted a Twitter ad saying like he was going to give a certain number of Hex, I don't remember how many, or a certain dollar amount of Hex to the sexiest Hex posts. So I made a TikTok video mocking Hexagon sayings, like it was a meme, and I did win. So it was I think the top 10 or the top 3, can't remember exactly, split the prize, but I did win. So yeah, it was funny. The video was really funny, really cringy, but I had a lot of fun making it, so I don't mind telling you about it. Okay. Early Hexagons. I'm not going to get all of the names off of my head because I didn't make the notes, and inevitably I will have left someone out. And so if I've left you out or left your favorite early Hexagon out, I'm sorry. It's not at all intentional. So who are the earliest Hexagons that I can name off of the top of my head? Hexo, Dollar Cost Crypto, who at the time went by Litecoin Moses, and then had become Hex. What was it? Hex Jesus, I think. Litecoin Moses, then advanced himself to Hex Jesus. And I jokingly asked him one time if, like, before he was Litecoin Moses, he was like something else, Noah, but he laughed. It was funny. Okay, so Dollar Cross Crypto, Crypto Coffee, Hexologist, RG3, Annette, Sammy Chica, Maddie was not long after this. Like I said, he came at the Add Hex to Page 1 campaign. Who else? Who else? Who else? Oh, Quattro Cinco, Toby Wan, Big K. Yeah, I'm sorry that I can't. Johnny Chaos, of course. I sorry that I can't name everyone. But yeah, there were a lot, and there were a lot of females in Hex, which was one of the big strategic selling points at the beginning, was that crypto communities are famously mismatched in how many, like, the proportion of men to women, and women were certainly outnumbered in the Hex community, but not by as much as others. So during the sexiest contest, Johnny Chaos made a for the male version of it, Johnny Chaos made a video that I think should have won but did not, about why women were attracted to Hex. And it was like, women appreciate commitment, which Hexicans have. Like, they like big, what was it, like, diamond hands. I can't remember all of them. It was hilarious. If you remember it, link it, or if you have the link it, or if you can find it, watch it. I'll try to find it and post it somewhere. It should have won. It was a crime that it did not. Okay, attack. Oh, sorry. One more thing. Early Hexicans. Okay, so I told you that like, this whole thing has religious basis, and you can see it, right? But it also, like, one of those religious bases was the way that Hexicans responded to a community that was really opposed to their existence. And this is really typical, actually. I tweeted about it recently, yesterday, maybe today, but that, like, it's always been the case that when people are surrounded by, uh, a collective hatred for them, or a community that they views them as hostile, they tend to, like, they're much more inclined toward extremism. And that was absolutely true for the early Hexicans. Like, they became super maximalist because, Richard Hart was being right about everything, but they were also under attack. So they weren't interested in forming friendships with other people, other communities. And, it definitely negatively affected them in the long run, because where there had been opportunities to talk to people civilly, those vanished, or were greatly reduced over time. So yeah, all right, let's move on. I'm like almost at 40 minutes right now, and not even close to being done. So Maddie, if you need to tell me to stop, feel free. All right, attacks on influencers. I just talked about that, so I'm going to skip it. I'm going to go into a really specific attack on Ayla. So Ayla, for those who don't know, she's a famous sex worker, pornographer, and writer. She created an awesome game called Asshole. It's free. I highly recommend playing it. She is, like, brilliant, genius. I actually tried to bring her into the Hex community, and I had a contact to her because my ex-boyfriend was her ex-boyfriend. So she was skeptical of all cryptocurrencies beyond Bitcoin, because she had been burned in the past on October 13th of 2020. She tweeted critiquing Hex but admitting that she hadn't read the docs. She had just formed her opinion based on other things that she had read. The community attacked her like hyenas. They attacked her for her healthcare methods. She had recently experimented with a fecal transplant, which is where someone who has a different gut biome, like their feces are like ground up and dried and put into a pill format, and then that is swallowed and ingested and can influence the microbiome of the person who ingests it. It is a valid technique. I have never done it, but like making fun of her for that was way over the top. They also attacked her for some of her other uh, like what's the word? Some of her other ideas that are a little controversial. Like she's famously known for taking very few showers, and her work history is in the sex industry. In fact, okay, she is famous for creating a genre called comedy porn, and it was on Reddit, and like it just blew up. Yeah, just telling you that. She did delete the original tweet, but I was able to find some responses with a search. I couldn't like see all of the comments to prove how nasty things got, but this was one of the nastiest attacks I ever saw. All right, Bunga Bunga, created by Hexologist. It originally was just like a war cry, a rallying cry to the community, but over time it became Bunga Bunga was like what you've said to the critics. So it evolved over time, as all language does, if you know from my previous presentation about Ludwig Wittgenstein and the theory of everyday language. Yeah, so that phrase kind of evolved over time. Here's Johnny Chaos's post about it. Hexy. I'm gonna skip this because I'm gonna go over anyway, but it was like a token that was built on top of Hex that was meant to help Hex, and a lot of people got involved, and it ended up being a total rug pull. All right, Big Payday, which was on November 19th, 2020. So it was the end of the AA lobby. And that is when people could actually during the AA lobby, it was structured intentionally like the year-long ICO for EOS, which was Brock Pierce. But so Hex was structured slightly differently, slightly different language to avoid SEC coming down on them, but it happened at the end of when the AA lobby closed. And that's when all of the tokens, the free tokens that had been unclaimed, were distributed to stakers based on how big and how long their stakes were. So Johnny Jones is here in this tweet saying to all my Hex haters who are calling it a scam, let me show you something about APY. It's 2.8 years ago, roughly $100 and staked, got awesome yield and big payday included. With nowadays value, it's over $100,000. Was it 100,000 or 10,000? 10,000. I love facts, not FUD. At the same time, there's been criticism of the of Big Payday and also for sacrifices, because at the last minute, the origin address came in and staked a lot of Hex over short periods mostly, but that reduced the payout to those who had claimed and staked. And Richard explained, and a lot of people understood it as that was needed because a lot of the people who received free Hex were Bitcoin maximalists, and they were just going to dump as soon as their stakes ended. And so to reduce the downward price pressure, that's what had to be done. Whether or not that's true, you can determine for yourself. All right, music videos. So there are more than this, but I want to shout out two of them. There was the Hexico video that was published on July 16th of 2021, produced by Toby Wan. It was a valiant effort. You know, it was like a voice dub over a version of Kokomo by the Beach Boys. And it was cute, and like, you know, really appreciate Toby for doing it. That is me. I was in the video. But Toby is not the Beach Boys. Sorry, Toby. All right, and then the more famous, I believe the most famous music video in Hex history, published on, you know, Freddie Quotes created it. It was published on October 1st of 2021, which was pretty much the exact top for Hex. Okay, it was a banger. It's still a banger. I watched it today while I was preparing for this. Even Eric Wall, who is criticized in the video, and you can see him in that image of Freddie in front of the casket, you know, I think loser is written on his forehead. Even Eric Wall admitted that this video was an absolute banger, that the lyrics were incredible. And like, you know, Eric didn't say this, I'm saying it. Freddie is like early Eminem, super talented, regardless of how you feel about him and his views now. You kind of can't deny that he's a very talented musician. All right. Around the top, when people started getting together for in-person conferences and meetups, Nagabo hosted some pretty epic mansion parties in Las Vegas. There he is at one of them. CoinMarketCap suppressing ranking and lawsuit. I actually already talked about that. Fundraisers. Okay, so there were fundraisers for everything. There was a fundraiser for the Highest of Stakes documentary. There was a fundraiser for the lawsuit against CoinMarketCap, various community members needing things. Everything was fundraise. So pretty much like his all effort, like, you know, centralized exchange listings, marketing initiatives, everything had to be done by the community. So it was always a community effort. Hexflex. That's even in the song, the transition song for this conference.
That's right.
Hey, Maddie. Am I done?
Well, yeah, I mean, like, I suspected that you might not be able to get through all the Hex lore in just 40 minutes, but yeah, like you've certainly covered a lot.
Okay, thank you.
And yeah, like, where can people find more of your content, and what are you up to these days?
Yeah, so you can find more of my content. I'm mostly on X. Some of my older stuff is on YouTube. If you go to Discourse Syndicate and search Building Bridges, you can find it there. There's some stuff on my own YouTube, but like, please don't go there. And yeah, like these days, I don't know, I've got, you know, a lot of different things going on. I've got all right, I've got you know, two or three different jobs that are all part-time. Like I said in the intro, I could use some more work if it's the right thing. So like, you know, if there's anybody out there who needs a writer or producer or PR, talk to me.
Awesome. Yeah, well, maybe hopefully in the future we can get a part 2 to this talk at
Sure.
the Text conference. And yeah, thank you so much for coming back again this year.
Yeah, thanks for having me, and thanks everyone for coming and listening. And yeah, sorry I went over. But
No,
I was
you're
trying.
good.
I was trying so hard to like make it long enough, and I went too far.
Well, perfect. And up next, we have a panel after this short interlude. Thanks.
With that being said, let's talk about the highest appreciating asset class today. It's crypto, not stocks and bonds. Boy, this ain't for play. My word plays to educate the children around my way, so they can get out the hood. No, I don't wanna stay. Education's critical in my life, pivotal. Could have been in jail or dead. Yeah, it's just that simple. But back to investing. Here, take some notes. Never go all in like jumping off a boat. Dollar cost averaging. Google that term so you can keep your shirt on, so you don't get burned. Now there's a risk to all investments. This you should know. You can take yearly profits and get ready to blow.
Welcome, guys. Everybody hit the like and subscribe button, share this out. We've got a very distinguished panel here, and looking forward to everything you guys want to discuss about Hex and all the exciting things happening now.
Hey, everybody. How's it going?
Bang,
Good.
bang. Good to see you all. How you guys been?
Good.
Good. I was jamming, man. We have so much talent in the community. It's crazy.
We
That was
do.
totally
We
an
do.
investor, right? That's every time I come in on this, it's like a new song comes out. It's sick.
I've been
We've had a lot of
okay.
Hex songs over the years too, and they've all been pretty good.
I've mostly been laying in the shower in the fetal
Oh yeah,
position.
the drip, the Hex drip. What's up, Briz? Long time no see.
Yes, sir. How's it going, guys? So,
It's
if I
the
could
Hex
just-
conference is supposed to dump the prices. People were telling me, but apparently it's been pumping the prices because we're up. So more of this, please.
Big time, big time. And then first of all, I just want to say, and to everybody watching, happy 2026. You know what I mean? So, and then if we want to be a little bit more specific, technically, the year of the horse, you know what I mean? That's my sign. I think it's gonna be a killer year for us. The official year I think starts in February, but I think it's gonna be something to look forward to, something where ultimately, like we've been talking about, I've noticed him for many, many, many years. It's like only the real one will survive. This is something where I think a lot of us on this panel have talked about also before, where it's like the real will be recognized from the fake. That's just as simple as that. The real will be here, and those who don't, they won't. But ultimately, I truly believe we will be vindicated. And again, those who understand macro, I don't know if you want to touch into that as well, because I know I want to be Hex focused and stuff like that. But there's a lot of great macro catalysts coming into 2026 that I want to discuss. And I think, again, first and foremost, happy 2026 to everybody, because we don't get to talk every day. So just want to start with that.
Yeah, happy 2026. I mean, you can't really talk about crypto without the macro, right? I think like everybody who, has been in crypto a long time, when this cycle came around, they had expectations based on what happened prior. But as we've come to learn, the thing with investing is you learn over time, right? Everybody wants instant gratification in crypto, but there's certain things that we haven't experienced that older generations have, right? So my parents told me about, times when mortgages were 15% and you could get 5 or 6% in a savings account. That was foreign to us until, recently. Now mortgages never actually got that high, but, even, a year or two ago, you could get, over 4%. I think the highest I saw like in a savings account was 4.5%. That, if we would have said that 4 or 5 years ago, we wouldn't have believed it, because that was something that we've never seen in our lives. In all the decades we've lived, we've never seen that. So I think people have expectations, based on the past, and everyone's always looking at like what happened last cycle. What did it do last cycle? But every cycle has kind of been a little different. And when you really look at like the macro and the fact that they're paying you 5% basically to be in cash, it's like it's kind of obvious that this time was going to be different. So
Absolutely.
The thing about the crypto cycle is it's not that old.
for whatever reason, I can't
compared
hear
to
Briz and Fast Abdul, but I hear you, Karim.
testing.
I can hear everybody.
Yeah,
Okay, I might have
think
to
it's you,
back
Wendy's.
out.
Go ahead.
What I
Pat.
was saying is the cycle's not that old as far for crypto as it is for traditional markets. Like, what are we going back to 2009 for Bitcoin? Does that sound right? Yeah, so we got 16 years of data, right? Which is like maybe 4-year cycles if that was your thing. So the whole
Right.
this time it could be different thing. I think is a little more applicable to crypto than the stock market, because we really don't have that much data from a science point of view. What do you think, Kareem?
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. I think in terms of 4-year cycle, that whole thing started obviously because Bitcoin halving and everything. But the more you know and the more you understand about macro, for what people have been paying attention, it also corresponds with liquidity cycles, because that's what also start with and then create all this money printing. But then also this is how the overall debt get refinanced. So this is what creates those booms and busts and everything like that. So when you combine that, plus you understand what crypto was set out to solve, right? The whole, hey, can't trust government, your money being devalued, all this other stuff, on top of, decentralization, all that cool stuff. You get to really, really understand that this game has been played over and over and over again. You know, it doesn't repeat exactly, but it does rhyme. And every now and then there's a few variations that comes in. But once you really, really get it, you get to understand that you're waiting for certain things to click in order for the rest to just kind of follow suit. So once you understand that as an investor, you want to basically get in, so to speak, or dollar cost average, while the opportunity is still in a sense where, quote unquote, not everybody either knows about it or have been in already, because that's where lies the opportunity. You can't just wait until, quote unquote, everything pumps and then you get in. And then obviously the major retracement comes in because people are just going to take profit because people are going to be people. And then you're going to be like, well, what happened? Why is this not going up? You know what I mean? Where all along, when we told you, quote unquote, when to buy, you weren't buying. And then when it's like FOMOing back up at the top, that's when you come in. It's just, those are the things where people got to learn to fight those urges to really, really get that discipline. And this is why I love Hex so much. This is why I've always been outspoken. You know, now we're on year 6, which is so great because the code hasn't changed. Everything is working as designed, as intended since day one, at least for me when I got in. But again, the code and everything like that. So you get to understand that everything that was promised is still doing what it's supposed to be doing every single day and for aeons to come. On top of that, we have, again, more regulatory clarity, which the government is really, really pro crypto. I don't know if you guys watch even this week, you got big banks like Morgan Stanley and stuff like that, because it's huge. Why? Because in the near future, your regular bank account, we're not going to talk about brokerage and stuff like that. Your regular bank account might just say, hey, we custody crypto, put the crypto here. Hey, borrow against the crypto. Like stuff that we used to think that, oh my God, that's never going to happen. Oh, this thing is worth it. This and that. Next thing you know, boom, you'll be able to lay out crypto, borrow against. You want
2 years ago, they were shutting our banks down.
Exactly. So you see that big U-turn, you cannot help but to be bullish because you understand that a lot of those hurdles have been, quote unquote, removed to facilitate what needs.
I think that fits in perfectly with Richard launching ProveX, because ProveX is actually one of its main functions is to connect like Web 2, like regular internet, you know, like where you pay your Netflix subscription, where you do your online banking, to Web 3, which is like crypto, right?
Yes.
So ProveX could bridge that gap. So it could be the tool that your bank uses to make sure you have the crypto you say you have before they give you a loan against it, or you know, things like that, right? That's not a specific example, but yeah, it could play a part in what is to come.
And by the way, here's the beauty. It's going to be like the ultimate quote unquote credit score. It doesn't matter what your credit score is. If you got the collateral, and that's why crypto has that verifiable proof, that automatically makes you qualifiable. And for those who, you know, going more on the deep end in terms of like understanding DeFi and stuff like that, there's also now companies or certain setup where you can literally get your quote unquote virtual card, you know, like no tap to pay or whatever that people already do for the most part around the world. You can tie that into crypto, and then you have your money directly in crypto, probably earning yield somewhere, right? And you can tie that to a card, and next thing you know, you're buying goods and services on the day-to-day basis. So basically now we get that final stage where the crypto is fully internalized into your day-to-day life, like Fast Abdul was saying. And that's basically the completion, right? You get the decentralization, you get to control your own money, you get to make sure you fight against inflation, you get to make sure you have some level of privacy, right? This is where the ProveX comes in, so you can have more free function to do whatever you want to do with your money. And then now, what I was talking about with that card thing, it's like how you get to be a little bit like frictionless from the crypto back into the real world and just spending it. I mean, in some place, you know, like Dubai, whatever, you can literally just buy stuff directly with crypto and stablecoin and just take it. But let's say for some of those places that might not be there yet, you can still bypass that by just doing that virtual card, like I was just saying. You know what I mean? It collects the crypto, they issue you a card, and literally you don't even have to wait for the card to come in the mail. It's a virtual card. You just know the tap to pay. You just register it, and then next thing you know,
you can buy some big luxury things. Like I think you can buy a Lamborghini with crypto, you know. But I think the time is coming where you'll be able to buy a coffee at like a regular coffee place, right? Not like a weird one with some you know, some university guy behind the counter who has a special service, but like just like Dunkin' Donuts. Pay for your coffee with Hex. Not that you should do that, but it'd be cool if you could.
Yeah, but this is the beauty about DeFi, right? How it ties into Hex and everything. Because again, once you understand something that I've said for many, many years, where it's like if you leave off the interest, right? I'm gonna say this slow for those watching. If you leave off the interest, truly, the price doesn't matter. In other words, the extra unit that you're earning when you're staking yield, right? When you have your ladder and everything set up, basically is free money. The principal never gets touched. Let's say you start, I'm just easy math. You started with 1,000,000 hex, right? And you get to a point where it's like that 1,000,000 hex always just gets staked in perpetuity, so to speak. Whatever's generated, it's literally free money. So now, assuming, many years goes by, you're getting more yield, obviously more hex, and whether the price go up or down, whatever it might be, if you leave off of that, next thing you know, you become fully self-sustainable. And then because it's DeFi, that hex is interchangeable with anything that whatever currency you need at the time you need it, wherever you are in the world, right? Some place might say, oh, we'll take Ethereum. Some place might say, oh, we'll take a stable coin or whatever it might be. You can easily swap it then and then just use it for whatever you want to use it. Nowadays now with MetaMask, new update, you guys saw it. They even integrated Bitcoin now. I mean, the wrap Bitcoin version, like super easy, directly on into MetaMask. So you're seeing this innovation. You're seeing the scaling also that's coming into, Ethereum, ERC20, all the new upgrade that we obviously going to benefit from on Pulse Chain as well. You see how everything is getting together, interconnected. The barriers are going down and down and down to the point where it becomes frictionless, where everything's going to be just seamless, all in one. And those who have understood that opportunity from the really, really beginning and continue to stack. And when I say by leave off the interest, it's like your goal should be, what do I got to build to become self-sustainable based on the lifestyle that I want? That's what I always talk about, the dream account. How I've always talked about, making sure you know what your discretionary income is. Don't just quit your job, right, in the beginning, right? It gets to a point where, yes, you will reach escape velocity. But in order for me to get there, I had to have that discipline. The same way now, okay, market went down a little bit, everything is still good because I always had the discipline, right? Okay, I don't party as much as I used to. But then again, after many, many years of party, it gets boring anyway. So it's like, it gets to a point where it just goes back to the fundamentals. You stick to what works. The fundamentals still works, and things are getting better and better because, again, the clarity is coming in. We still got Clarity Act coming in 2026. That's going to be huge. Tom Lee is out there doing God's work for Ethereum. Why does that matter? Because, again, DeFi, Ethereum, everything, that it matters for us. But what's hilarious is Tom Lee is basically doing the Hex playbook. That's what people don't understand. He talks about long-term investing, right? Not trading. He's talking about building wealth. He talks about staking the ETH irrespective of the price, creating that short squeeze, becoming, I forget the exact terminology, but basically a big player into the ecosystem, staking it so that not only that creates a supply shock, but also you become a custodian of the space and then trying to help the ecosystem grow by betting onto the space. I mean, literally, that's what we've been doing and saying about Hex. That's what Richard's been doing for many, many years. And the amount of Hex actually out there in circulation is forever less than what it was since the beginning. So it's like,
here's the other thing too, Kareem, real quick, is that people are gonna have to figure out that, like, the dollar, they're printing it ad infinitum into infinity, right? And I just got my rent bill in the mail the other day, and I was looking at it, and I've had this place for 20 years, and the price of the rent has literally doubled in the last 20 years. And so to me, it just means that every dollar I saved 20 years ago is now worth 50%. It buys me 50% less housing. I have to spend twice as much, and the walls are the same. The walls haven't been painted. It's the same damn house. There's nothing that has made this apartment worth twice as much.
It's like you're getting less value and you're paying double the price.
Yeah. And so, like, the whole point is that people, like, they're gonna have to figure out that just saving their money in fiat, it's a lost cause. You gotta get into something else. And the appreciating assets of crypto, it's just like kind of getting into the stock market in the early 1900s. On a long enough time scale, it's going to go up and to the right.
Absolutely.
And so people are going to have to figure out crypto. And Richard has designed this ecosystem fairly well, but It's just going to take time. I think on a long enough timeline, people are going to figure it out.
Well, people always want to, like Karim was saying earlier, they always want to buy high and sell low, right? Like DCAing when prices are low is hard. And this is a perfect example, right? Because what, for like the last like 20 years or so, 10, 20 years, gold and silver have been completely overlooked. Nobody wanted anything to do with them. Now it's like I log into YouTube and I'm seeing like ads for silver and gold channels like crypto was, like last cycle. So it's the same thing every time, and telling people like I know that have a lot of precious metals, I'm like, hey man, like silver is going straight up. It's literally like parabolic,
Mhm.
It's
Like I
like,
bought this for $20,
yeah,
2014.
exactly.
There you go.
But it's like the same thing, right? When it's going straight up like that, you're like, hey man, every $10 you might want to like take some profit, right? Because
Mhm.
it's probably going to come back down. And they're like, no, silver's going to 250. It's the same. It's the same stuff every time. But it's like
For us,
fighting that human nature is so hard. And so just like telling someone to buy silver at $10, they didn't want to do it. Telling somebody to buy hex right here, they don't want to do it. But when it's high, that's when everyone's like, oh yeah, because it feels better, right? Because
Mhm.
everybody's up, everybody's making money. So then it's like, oh yeah, of course this is smart. Like, but you have to fight that human nature, which is so hard.
I
Absolutely.
noticed, real quick, Kareem, I didn't, the first time I noticed lines outside the gold store was at all-time highs.
Oh yeah, that's
Everyone
exactly.
wants to buy
It's not
expensive
just,
stuff.
yeah, and we're not just saying that. That's literally how it is.
It's human nature.
Even the Ferrari that like Richard bought's down 50%. Everybody was buying them, but guess what? They kept making them. They kept making them. It wasn't a limited production Ferrari, and
Yeah, because they want
now
to cash it.
you're getting them 50% off. Even basically brand new. So that's just the supply and demand things. When everyone's rushing to the door, it's because like humans love the herd mentality, right? You see your neighbors and they're in line for gold, and you're like, hey, what? And then you ask them and you say, oh yeah, I made $100,000 holding gold for the last 10 years, and you say, what? Like, oh man, Brian made a lot of money, I'm gonna get in line too, and then it's just a herd mentality kind of thing, and it's like, how many times have people bought the local, like a local top, right? It's because it feels good to buy a local top. That's when it feels good. You gotta train yourself to do the opposite.
I feel
Absolutely.
like there's going to be a strong narrative in the soonish future of people going from precious metals into crypto.
Yeah, I mean
that
they've
will
shown
push
that
it.
before. There's plenty of charts that show that like typically like gold runs first and stuff like that. Now you got to ask yourself, with the massive run that they've had, is that setting us up for a massive run? And I know Kareem looks at all the macro stuff. I mean, fundamentally, we're looking pretty good, going into
Yes.
the next
So,
couple of years.
so look at it this way, and this is a great topic. But just to rewind a little bit here, because there's a lot of nuggets that was given here, and then there's a lot of things that can easily be, go over people's head, or they just realize, oh shit, there was a wisdom here, but I didn't pay attention. Like, a lot of the reason why people have this kind of behavior, like we were talking about, is because, again, it's hard to be patient. It's hard to be disciplined. There's nothing sexy about DCA, dollar cost average. All they hear is like, why am I not rich yet? Why am I not rich yet? I put the money in today. Why is it not doubling tomorrow? Why is it slow? What? Not understanding that sometimes the preparation is what then gets you the surge. And then when you get escape velocity and you make, quote unquote, so much money, people look at you and be like, oh my God, you're so lucky. No, it's not luck. You prepare for this. And this is literally what makes this so hard for people to grasp. Or even when they grasp it, they still don't do it because, again, they lack the discipline. This is one of my favorite quotes that I love, that I've said many times before. What's easy to do is also easy not to do. Therefore, it is hard. Let me say it again for the viewers. Maybe you want to write this down. It's one of my favorite quotes. What's easy to do is also easy not to do. Therefore, it's hard. The easiest example that I use all the time is I tell people, hey, everybody knows they should brush their teeth every day, right? But do they do it? No, they don't. Because I'll do it tomorrow. Oh, I'll do it. They keep postponing. And it's the same thing with this. Once you understand everything that we've been talking about for many, many years, everything that researchers have been talking about, why, again, you want to be into something that's not a depreciating asset. Like Brice is talking about what's happening, in the rent industry and in many places all around the world, because they just keep devaluing the stuff. People know, but they just don't do it. because they don't have the discipline. And by the time they realize, it's too late. The people who waited for the precious metal, kudos to them. That's the wisdom, because they stick to the gun, they waited, and now the surge came in. And the reason why I'm believing that there's going to be a rotation is because we're not talking about a small asset class. This is multi-trillion dollar asset class. By the time they cash in on those gains, because some of those people, we know they've been accumulating gold, especially the big money, for many, many years. So their accumulation has been insane. So when you get just a double on something that you've been accumulating for 10 years, that 2x is insane, because the accumulation was so long. It wasn't like, oh, I accumulated for 6 months to a year and then I got a 2x or a 3x. It's kind of like I told my friends, like, hey, you can get a 3x on the $500 and brag about it. Or we can really, really talk about some serious money, dollar cost averaging, preparing for retirement, or for, taking care of your family, whatever it might be. And then we might put, 6 figures. Yeah, I said it because I've done it. But once that thing double, or God forbid, 5x and up, you get to what I call escape velocity. You're not just like, oh, I make a little bit more money so I can afford a nice vacation somewhere, or take care of one bill that I want to do for my loved one or whatever. No, we're talking about like generational wealth. That's really the fundamental shift that we're talking about. This is why I told people, like, the pain is nothing, because what you're solving for can literally set you up for life. And that's what we're gearing into. So to answer your question, why 2026 is going to be so huge, because the pump has been so insane. These people made so much profit. And even if they just do the sensible thing, which is diversify, like he was talking about, Wendy's were talking about, hey, just take 10% off. That 10% could be $1 trillion. And then I can send Bitcoin to 200K, Ethereum to, 10,000 and above and whatever. And that's not counting the fact that we have crazy supply shock, right? Little macro for 2 seconds. The amount of crypto on exchange, big crypto, Ethereum, Bitcoin, is at 16-year low, 16, like lower numbers than when we had the crazy run in 2021. So it goes to show that at any time, this whole thing can sparkle. Vanguard finally joined the party. Everybody knows about BlackRock, but they forget that Vanguard is the second biggest, literally 8 to 10 trillion dollar under asset management as well. And a lot of those were old school. A lot of those people at Vanguard were like older people, precious metal people that love dividend, low, chill, whatever. They're gonna fucking love ETH, especially now that the staking is happening. The same thing that we're doing with Hex, and the same thing where they're gonna start diversifying a little bit of their precious metal when they feel like the run is gonna chill out. Precious metal will always rally, but again, those are 10-year rally, and then it can cool off for 5 years. So once the rally kind of stops, I don't think it's stopping just yet, because if you follow geopolitics, China is also buying a lot of gold and creating some of the hype, because they know what America wants to do with stable coins. So they want to create back up their currency with gold, old school way. So that's why they're going to keep pumping the price. So the run is still going. But again, like Wendy's been saying, that doesn't mean that at some point they're not going to take off a little bit off the table. I think somewhere around gold hitting the 5K mark, everybody knows about round numbers and big numbers. That is going to be a huge 4,500 was kind of like the warning shot. But I think when gold hit 5K, by the way, they can easily 5K by the end of the month.
5K gold, $100 silver.
Exactly. Those nice round numbers.
Everybody thinks they're a genius because that's their target. When it hits 5K, I'm going to sell.
We all remember 5K Bitcoin when that happened, right? It ran away, 5K, boom, pulled back to 3,500, whatever, and then it went to 10K. We see that in many assets. I remember when Hex, hit that 10 cents and was like, whoa. And then, so it's like, but we did the same thing. We hit the penny, glorious. Then we went to 5 cents, right? We call it, then we pull back. But then the thing is, like, it's something that's going to follow a natural progression, because also, like Britt's been saying, they're going to keep printing money. So it's just going to be milestone, rotation, then milestone, rotation. So all that to say, we are literally in precious time, because I truly believe this year is really the year where I think Ethereum is going to be doing a little bit better than Bitcoin for 3 simple facts. And I'm going to hand it over to you guys. And why is that important? Because again, what happens with Ethereum matters with Hex because of bonding liquidity. That's going to help us a lot, right? Fact number 1 is all the work, just to sum it up, that Bitmine's been doing, and especially Tom Lee, because people underestimate how good Tom Lee actually is, because he's not just like a Wall Street guy. He's a great speaker. And the things that I always tell people is like, you don't fully understand something if you can't explain it in simple terms. The way Tom Lee explains it to the normies and the old people is so simple that he fully grasps it. he really understands what's to happen, and he has the connection with the Wall Street people. He knows what makes them tick. So that's very, very important, that what he's doing. And he took something from the Michael Saylor playbook. I don't know if you guys been paying attention, but there's a major vote that's happening next week on the 14th-ish. They're going to try to issue more shares so they can continue to buy more ETH aggressively. When that thing gets approved, which most likely will be, they want to increase it by almost like 50 to 1, the number of shares, is to continue just to buy more ETH and contribute to do the earnings per share. That is going to exacerbate the supply shock that they already know is happening. They purposely aren't pumping the price right now because they love to buy low, exactly like we've been talking about. They want to keep accumulating. They're not done. But eventually, when they hit a threshold, like, all right, we got the 5%, we got the extra shares, they're going to FOMO this thing, because once you understand that you control most of the supply, right, just like we do on the SilverX, and you know what's sitting on the order books on the exchange, you know what kind of money you can push into it, you know what kind of FOMO you can generate. FOMO the price up, the value goes up, which then boosts the value of the share. Then the Bitmine stock will go crazy. And because they issue more shares, they're going to be able to sell more shares at a premium to then buy more ETH. And next thing you know, it's the flywheel. The same thing Michael Saylor did with Bitcoin. But
what does Tom Lee say for ETH? What's his target?
He ups it on the early. He said early
60,000.
Is 5 to 7K.
60,000. Okay.
But at the end of the year,
I like 60,000. The sack bags would be worth $10 billion if it hits 60,000.
At the bare minimum,
I think that could be good for us.
Yes.
I've heard anywhere from, I think, 30 to 60,000 from Tom Lee.
That's a good range. I can live with 30. Easily. I'd be a little disappointed, but
I'm expecting 20,000. That's my. But I'm trying to be conservative, and I tell people 10,000 Ethereum. So when I tell people 10,000, that's just me being conservative.
Yes, and here's why it's also important. There's one more factor. Ethereum is actually one of the most shorted crypto there is out there. It's insane. This reminds me Tesla. For those who don't know, back in the day when I used to work at Tesla, whatever, when like people were making the company is gonna go bankrupt, they're burning so much money. Like it's the same bullshit. They didn't believe in the vision. They didn't say, Elon Musk is crazy, all this and that in turn. It's hype, there's nothing in there. Like it's worthless, is this, is that. And then the shit just went up like crazy, murdered the shorts like crazy. Bill Gates knows a lot of things about that. He lost a shit ton of money. And then at the end of it, we even got a 5x multiple because we got 5 times the number of share. And then the thing still ran up to $1,000. And then it just keeps increasing market cap. Today, it's like a trillion market cap. So I see the same play because the fundamentals are there. And the future, beyond the printing money, what is going to also be, a lot of AI. Is going to be a lot of, again, all the stuff that we need and what the world will be running to help the GDP and all this other stuff is going to be running on crypto. And Ethereum and DeFi is literally perfectly positioned for that. And when I say Ethereum, it means Pulse Chain as well, because again, everything gets in connection. The bonding liquidity, people underestimate. Like we don't have, if for example, the Hex to ETH ratio stay what it is without putting a single cent. I'm gonna say this slow because people might miss it. Without putting a single cent, if the Hex to ETH ratio stays the same, and Ethereum just go to 7K, Hex just goes with it. Fast Abdul knows this. Most people knows this because again, this is where ratio matters because we are bonded. So in other words, and that's before any new money is injected, because all of a sudden, if you 1% of something or 5% of something, and the something goes up double, triple, quadruple, you also go up. But now the best part is if you start going higher than the thing that went up 5 times or 2 times, now it moves as a function of a square. So next thing you know, it adds up to it. And it's something that's very, very illiquid. The stuff that Tom Lee is trying to do with Bitmine, I mean, Hex right now is 93% stake. I mean, it's a freaking joke. Like the liquidity, what's available right now to sell or to buy, it's so low, it's insane. We've had also some capitulation over the past month, December, everybody saw it. So now it's like, it also means that the more something goes down like this, once it rebounds, it's going to be a slingshot.
Oh, yeah. Well, we intentionally have a low liquidity situation with all core tokens, right? Like that by design when Richard changed the in commissions. So like, the only reason I could think of why he would do that was so that the price could pump easier. The three of us understand it also means it can dump easier, but like I do believe that's all part of the plan. And Richard always seems to talk about He doesn't calculate X's from the launch day. He always calculates it from the lowest day on the chart,
Yes.
which I think for most RH tokens we saw in probably beginning of December or end of January or end of November. We saw like all-time lows. So
Yes.
those will be the days that he's talking about when he says, "Look, we did 10,000 X again." He's going to be pointing at that day. And so if UD
because
stayed
the
on that
bottom
day,
is
which
there,
would
and then-
suck. Like, it'd be
Exactly.
terrible, like, to buy on that day, but like it would be awesome when there's the 10,000X from that point.
Absolutely. And again, it's geared to
Real
do that.
quick,
By the way,
Kareem, I want to give I'm not sure how much time we have left, but I want to give the audience just like a glimmer of hopium. Here's the way I kind of I see things happening within like the next couple years is that I think within this year I see how the next $1 billion enters the ecosystem. And what's going to happen is when that $1 billion comes in, there's going to be a lot of people who sell. And that's fine. That's what that $1 billion for, is to kind of put into the system. And if people want to take it, they can take it. And then we're going to go really low again. And I think, and here's the hopium, is that I believe that in, say, cycle 2 of Pulse Chain, all those people that got rich by extracting that $1 billion, they're going to come back when the prices are down 80-90% for a second chance to get another $1 billion. And so
but here's a fun fact.
I believe what's going to happen is that, you know, all the coins that people sell at the end of this cycle, 99% of those coins are going to get bought up by, you know, a mystery bag or whatever. And those coins are going to be put into a black hole. They're never going to return to the market. And now, maybe like a year and a half later, maybe 2 years, there's going to be a bunch of people who got rich, and they're going to come back with maybe 10% of that billion, so like $100 million, and they're going to buy up the 1% remaining coins. And I think that's where that's just going to moonshot us even harder into the next cycle. And so
the FOMO is going to be even more insane than that, Briss. So here's a fun fact, because I actually run the numbers. People don't know, it's crazy. When Hex went to 50 cents, by the way, fun fact, it wasn't even $1 billion. All he needed was, we spend it about, I mean, the whole volume, whatever, it was roughly about, we did the math, anywhere from 110 million to 130 million. In other words, roughly 1/10, I'm going to say this again, 1/10 of $1 billion is what sent Hex to 50 cents. People have no idea how insane, literally, when we say low liquidity plus staking function, especially something that has penalty, where a lot of people got liquidated, a lot of people took a lot of 50% pay cut penalty. Like, I don't think people fully grasp what's been happening the past couple of weeks. We've been getting 2-3 Hex per t-shirt in this crazy environment when we're 93% stake.
Over the last 9 days, we've had 7 green days and only 2 red days.
Exactly. The penalties has been so insane. I know personally some people that literally they return 5 years worth of yield. I mean, it's that bad. So in other words, if you thought the supply shock was insane back in the day when we ran up like crazy, it's even more insane than that, because a lot of people that got those yield, a lot of people gave it all back. A lot of people got nuked. Some got hacked, unfortunately. Some played the racial trading back in the day. You guys remember EXPX, all that garbage? They lost half their bag, you know, assuming you're like me, you have both sides, right? So they lost half the bag because they were chasing whatever. So that also is gone. So you get to a point where what's actually there is very, 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 very low. That's number one. Number two, as a little parenthesis, only because, you know, it's Hex conference, but as a parenthesis, similar thing happens with Pulse Chain. A lot of people got a lot of bonus because Richard Hart is a generous man. You got crazy bonus premium for, just like you go into a store, if you buy a lot, they give you a discount. But a lot of those people squander it. They sold it. They thought
Hey,
they were
real
smart.
quick, Kareem, I just tell the audience to do this. If you guys really want to see, what can possibly happen, just go to PulseX and put in like $1 million of DAI for any coin. Then look at the slippage. The slippage is pretty insane. I'm not sure what
Yep.
it is. I don't have a tab open.
And
That
that goes to show.
slippage is what causes the price to go up or down if people are buying or selling.
Exactly.
Just go look at what $1 million does for slippage. And now imagine the next $1 billion that flows in. Just like think about it, we could get $10 million a day for 100 days.
Yes. So all that to
And
say, also very
I
important.
think that would give everyone the opportunity to leave in profit at some point.
Yeah,
I
look
feel
at
like
this
the biggest
message here.
players would probably be out within the first 2 weeks to the first month, and then it just keeps going for the next month, and people are going to start losing their minds, and then by the end of the third month, people are going to be like, this is it. This is totally it. Everyone needs to be buying the top. There are no more
Grace,
bottoms. It just keeps going, and then at
I
that
just
point,
pulled
they'll
that up for you, Grizz,
probably
on
be
Hex.
buying the top.
yeah. Look at this comment here. Somebody said $60 million net inflow to Hex sends the Hex price to $1.40, 500x. And then the core
There we go.
coins 0.68. Because again, it's literally that illiquid. And the reason why it's also a defense mechanism is because when you pump something like that, let's say this fast, it creates such a massive amount of FOMO that when people say, oh, but people are going to say, I was there, I saw it. When FOMO hits, I don't care if you have 500, a billion hex. I've seen it. People were selling and the buying just kept happening. So if the FOMO gets to a certain level, you are underestimating the new capital, the people who make money from other coins, the people who make money from precious metal that were not even in crypto, the new people that we are marketing to, that Richard talks about, the rest of the world that hasn't even heard about Hex, so to speak. When those guys comes in, all the people, the remaining people that try to net sell, they're literally peanuts. And back in the day, one more time, when we did that 110 to 130 million dollars, this is including the early days when people had a shit ton of hex. Remember, we were distributing 500 million hex a day. That was launch phase money, all this other stuff. There was a lot of fluff. There was a lot of liquidity. There's people that were casually sitting with 300 million hex liquid, bragging about it. Like, oh, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, and I'm going to sell on your head. But all those people, a lot of them, it's gone. It's gone. It's either you're like us, like the big wallet that has like hundreds of millions of hex, you either stake or you really understand the system. Like, bro, I didn't sell at 50 cents or 40 cents or 30 cents. Why would I sell now? That makes no sense, right?
We had more whales back then for sure.
Yes. So once you understand that, plus the low liquidity, plus the bonding liquidity, plus ETH might go into a super cycle when those pumps start happening, everything we talk about with Tom Lee, which basically is just a mini Hex on steroid. Literally, ETH is doing what Hex has already done. The only difference is Hex is not on fucking Wall Street. Tom Lee doesn't know about it. That's basically what it is. Talking about a supply shock, bro, we have it. Talking about heavy staking, because now since Tom Lee got involved, the staking on ETH is going insane. People are coming back in, validators, all this other stuff. We are 93%. Nobody got it better than us. And it's in diamond hands, real hands, never sold. It's the best holder in the world. I don't care who you are, VC, whatever. 6 years and counting, not a single coin sold. Period. The best tracker there is in the world. Straight blank, period. Now you add that plus yield. Okay, we're no longer at 30% yield, whatever. But we still have insane yield. On a 10 to 15 year basis, it's double digits, right? Compared to your little 3, 4, 5%, which, by the way, once they start lowering rates, which is going to help the pumping, that rate's going to go down. As that rate goes down, it's good for DeFi because money, $8 trillion and counting, sitting on money market funds or whatever, that's also going to start moving out. Yep. Chase higher yield. We're going to be there. When Ethereum is giving you 3% and you're excited about that because ETH's going to start mooning, and then you're going to realize what's going on in DeFi, because Tom Lee also said we're getting a lot of shit ton of ETH because in the future, we're going to bet in the ecosystem. We're going to look at other projects. This is how we heard about random big names that ended up in Hex. How? Because they're like, holy shit, what is this thing? Oh, it's actually a good idea. Oh, it's doing this, it's doing that. The lock can be like, because That's how much of a genius code we actually have. Plus, we have regulatory clarity. Again, people keep like not paying attention. When big money wants to get involved in something, they want to know if it's safe. Oh, the guy win the court case. It's safe. It's everything taken care of. What? Now we got the Provex with the privacy. If I want to get in, stealth mode and not be known. Imagine somebody that hates Richard Hart, but he wants to make money. He would love the thing like Provex because he can go in there, still playing the hater, but he's in the system. Because
these things aren't coincidences. Like the timing is on purpose. And I think that will tie into the yield as well. Like right now, the yield on Hex is not super high by design because it moves the OA account made. Like once these like big Ethereum guys start looking for a diversified yield, I wouldn't be shocked if maybe there was some emergency end stakes and like, oh, look, now Hex is paying 17%. Oh, now it's paying 27%. Now it's paying 38%.
With
just
real
at the right
liquidity
timing. Right?
That you can buy and sell. And let me remind people, Hex was what makes Uniswap popular. Hex, the smart contract, was consistently top 5 code run. Like literally, the reason why we end up creating Pulsing because we're paying so much fee. Like we're talking about around the world, people were actually using the code, like interacting with the smart contract, purely decentralized, all this other ethos. So when all those people come back and we have even more liquidity because they know that the green candle is the best form of advertising. When that happens, you get the FOMO in of the people, the existing people who already gave up a lot of their bag. Let's say they sell a little bit, that's fine because they're gonna feel bad. They might even stop buying back because they're gonna be like, oh shit, Hex is gonna do it again because now the PTSD is gonna kick in. Holy shit, I saw the first 10,000 X. Imagine I missed the next one. That's gonna mess up people's mind. All they need, I promise you, all they need is once the pump starts happening, Hex cross back to that penny, 2 penny, and start pushing back up. Watch how all the narrative, all the hate start to change. Everything changed because just like the people that do too much degen trading, they're like, oh my God, we're in the bear market. It's about couple green candle, everybody's bullish again, right? It's the same thing. The secret.
I've always said this. I've always said that the bull erases all the pain of the bear. Like it's very quick that people start forgetting. When things start getting good, you start like forgetting, and there's just huge recency bias always in investing and especially crypto, because people like how many times does the average crypto guy check their phone and check prices, right?
Times 10.
Like probably like the average is probably like 80 to 90 times a day. So
I've checked it 7
it's just
times
like,
since we started the stream.
Exactly. So even like with TikTok, it's like lowered the attention span of like the average human. Crypto bros, like your memory can definitely be affected by crypto if you let it. So on a grand scale, that's what happens is like everyone has recency bias, and when things are bad, it's going to stay bad forever, and when things are good, it's like, oh man, this is great. And you forget about the pain that you went through.
Absolutely. And a couple points to point out as well, which is very, very important. The average crypto guys who has been wrecked many times, sadly, because he had to learn that tuition, is finally starting to realize, holy shit, I need to start dollar cost averaging into things that actually matters, not just hype, not just meme coin. Nothing against meme coin. People do whatever they want. But now that they've been burned enough to some degree, they're going to start being like, holy shit, okay, I need to start paying attention to the other stuff, which is also bullish for our space. This is why Ethereum is going to catch that wind back, because unfortunately, after the DeFi summer that we had in 2021, which was great, because Gary Gensler and all the cronies were so bad that doing a legit project was looking frowned upon. So literally, you're going to get sued and all sort of stuff. So this is why the rise of so much crap became popular. You guys remember that? Because you're trying to do something legit, promise some buybacks or whatever, you're going to get sued. This is how the meme coin came in and then they rise on the Bitcoin cocktail. So then when the euphoria come in, and then all the legit project just basically say, screw this. Why am I going to work hard when some scammer can just build something and make 10 times more money than me when I've been working for many, many years trying to build something, and then I'm getting called a scammer every day. Like people don't understand how strong mentality you got to have. That's how I have so much respect for Richard Hart. Like you have no idea when you got so much money and you're being called out all kinds, and then you're still here. You still fighting because you want to prove it to people. Like, what I mean? That's like the Elon Musk mentality where it's like, you're already rich enough, you did it, but you're like, nah, I'm going to go build 3 companies and sleep on the couch. And then because for you, it's not even about the money anymore. You just want to prove the hater wrong. And that's going to happen. So now we're getting the clarity. You hear what Uniswap, they're gonna turn back the fee switch. All those big projects that talk about like, oh, we're gonna start making promise again because now we got the regulatory clarity. So what that means, all that's coming back. And when ETH start to pump and DeFi is back again, this is the perfect time because that's when Hex was shining the best because it was DeFi summer and everybody knows it's the king of DeFi. So we make DeFi popular again compared to the scams. You get the bonding liquidity, you get the push of the money. Everybody getting more familiar with why staking is important. Stake there and chill, basically leave off your interest, right? Now you got even stable coins that you can use. So now all these things is we're gearing up for what we always wanted. Like I said 5 years ago, we're going to get to a point where I believe a world where everything is going to be seamless integration. You're going to buy from crypto to the real world, and you can just be your own bank, make your own financing, no credit score, have your own collateral, and live your fucking best life. And it's going to happen. It's literally going to happen.
One thing I want to say is that, like, if you really think about, like, I've been in crypto a really long time, and one thing that I know is so important is community. It doesn't matter how much hate your crypto gets, if your community can band together and weather the storm and survive. You know, the perfect example is XRP. XRP was, you know, loved early, then the founders dumped billions, literally billions of dollars. Imagine that. They dumped billions of dollars, okay? Yeah. And then the community hung on. It didn't make an all-time high the last cycle. When Hex went to 50 cents, XRP did not make a new all-time high. Yep. But they kept hanging on. They kept shilling. And it's like, now you got to respect it. They flipped Binance. They're the number 4 crypto. They made a new all-time high, you know, this cycle. Like, it's one of those things. So, like, to me, I think our best asset is our community, and that we're not going anywhere. You know, that was one really smart thing about Richard with the 15-year staking is that, you know, we're all in here, and you know, we have a very diverse community. Like, it's a lot bigger than people realize, and yes. You know, you can go months to a year without even bumping into somebody else. You know, like we were saying backstage. So that is one of our biggest assets. And just like, you know, people still make fun of XRP, but, you know, that's the tribalism of crypto, but a lot of people respect it, and it's getting even mainstream respect. And I believe that that's coming for us too, if we can, you know, hang around, band together long enough, and, you know, make a comeback in crypto, which I believe we will.
Absolutely. And
real quick, I just to add on top of that point, I think one of the more brilliant things Richard did, and I don't know if he actually even meant to do this or if it was just like, you know, part of he didn't want Hex to be part of the unregistered security thing, is that he said, hey, if you want something, you guys need to go do it. You know, you want people streaming about Hex, you need to do it, because I'm not going to do it. And now, because he's like really put the ball like, hey, I don't work for you guys. You know, you guys need to do your own thing. And now we have so much stuff. You know, we have this conference, which is really cool. You know, we have a ton of musicians. You know, we have more streamers than I believe any other coin. I haven't seen, other than Bitcoin, you know, maybe like I don't think there's any like
even Bitcoin. Trust me, all the OGs, they're retired, they're gone, they're not even around.
But I thought that was one of the pretty brilliant things Richard did, and
because he knew that's the only way to make it sustainable. It's kind of like at some point you got to let the kids just get out of the house. You can't just say, oh, it's too scary, just stay here, this, that. No, they're not going to learn. They're not going to have self-confidence. They're not going to have like believe in themselves in a sense where what they're saying is valuable. They're always going to be second guessing themselves. Like, you know, this is why I love about, you know, what we say trustless trust, right? People ask me, oh my God, it's because you're cool with Richard. No, it has nothing to do with that. I love him as a person. He's great. We met, we hang out, all that cool. But at the end of the day, I believe in the code. I believe what the Hex code stands for, what it was designed to do, what it is doing every day without skipping a beat, right? T-shares are paying every day. Today, wow, about an hour ago, we got paid. I mean, literally, it's like none of that is changing.
And Hex will get more and more scarce into the future. I really believe so. I mean, people just think it's being printed into infinity, but it's not. There's a lot of deflationary mechanisms built into Hex.
Share rates going up.
In the future, I really believe there's going to be a lot less Hex available. And like we were saying earlier, the money's just being printed into infinity. And so it just makes sense to get into an asset that's going to increase in value.
Absolutely. No, but I'm just saying for everybody, because we're getting close to the hour here. But what I want to leave everybody with is like, again, if you snooze, you lose. This has never been. This is not Cream shilling you this that. You already know. I got my bags. I'm gonna keep stacking to my bags. People do whatever they want to do. I'm just here sharing the message as the messenger, so that later on, when we got glory and people say we got lucky and this that, I'm gonna point back to this video and say, remember when I warned you guys one more time? Those who listen, great. Those who don't. It's just as simple as that. This is the year of the horse. You don't have to be super spiritual or this, that, but like we're done with the rat stuff. This is horse, I'm
like I said earlier,
like this is speedy. It's coming. Everything
like I said earlier, out of the last 9 days, we've had 7 green days and 2 red days.
Yep.
It really feels like something is a brewing, and I hope everyone has their bags packed, because I think
what
it's
gives
going
me
to be
the
a great
ultimate
year.
clarity is because I'm saying the same signs. Once again, I'm saying the same sign that I showed you in the DeFi summer when we went crazy and the 50 cents hex and whatever. People like to talk about the price so much, but they don't realize what was set in stage to get us there. Because for the first time, people realize, oh my God, I can be my own bank. Oh my God, I don't have to be just on exchange or whatever. I don't have to give my money to the bank and I get no yield. I can get real yield, stable coins, all this other stuff. People finally discover, oh my God, I truly have another alternative than a bank. I can do everything.
Have it all on Pulse Chain. All the stuff.
So
all the stable coins, we got all the DeFi stuff, all the big things from Ethereum are on Pulse Chain, which was created for Hex to avoid the Ethereum fees, but like we kept building. So Hex is responsible for the entire ecosystem, directly, basically.
So all those same things that I saw in 2021 are happening again. And now, better yet, Ethereum, at a greater extent, is getting a little bit of quote unquote scalability thanks to other layers, including Pulse Chain. So it's like it's getting more adoption. Like, oh my God, it's possible. Like just yesterday, Vitalik was talking about how like we solved the trilemma problem, which was what also made other chains and the Solanas of the like non-EVM be like, oh my God, we're gonna steal your lunch. Where it's like, no, now it get to a point where it's like decentralization, censorship resistant really matter, because if you're fast enough that people can transact without too much of a problem of a fee, then your other garbage stuff is not really relevant. They're going to go back to the main thing and keeping doing what we're supposed to be doing, which is, again, building wealth, the staking mechanism. So you're getting all of that happening. We're getting the Clarity Act that's going to be happening as well. A lot of stable coins coming in. They got to refinance $7 trillion of debt this year. Let's not forget that. They have the new chairman of the Federal Reserve that's going to be appointed in May, but everybody know markets forward looking. Trump's probably going to make the announcement of who the next guy is going to be by February, even though the guy starts in May. But the moment they make the announcement, market can start to run. We don't have to wait until May. Once we know who the guy is, it's game over. So you're getting this. Now we also heard he wants to buy $200 billion worth of mortgage-backed security, all that to help keep lowering rates down, to help people get some relief and some level of wealth. There's still a rumor about the $2,000 stimulus. We don't know if that's going to happen or not. But basically, 2026 is packed with a lot of shit. And all the tax benefits and the thing that he passed and the no tax on tips, all these things that people hear and say about, it's actually getting into effect now in 2026. That's what we're going to understand. That was only his first year. Like, this is
QT's
like
over.
Big boats. It's not a jet ski.
What's next.
Big boats, when you're trying to turn it and pivot, it takes time. But God forbid, once it's turned, it's fucking just goes from there. So again, do not snooze or you will lose, because we're getting all the things that we need to have an explosive 2026 for the DeFi summer. That doesn't mean every single coin is going to go. So example, if you got your shit coins out there or meme coins, that doesn't mean they're going to pump. I mean, they could, but that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about DeFi.
Basically. What do you think about this? Also, for the first time in a long time, we've actually, Trump has plundered Venezuela. He captured Venezuela. What if we plunder it and bring back a lot of that wealth back to America, and we just start pumping the markets with a lot of that wealth?
Well, but that's how they're going to do with the oil. By the way, this is something I used to talk about 2 years ago, how they do in other countries. But let's just say, at least, this is play devil advocate for 2 seconds, at least Trump did it better than Iraq war and thousands of people. He just did it on the you went to New Year's Eve, New Year's parties and whatever, and you come back. Oh, by the way, we took the president. Like he just went in there, swiftly 1, 2, 3, and that way he gets to counter China and Russia, because again now he can keep inflation low technically by just pumping oil out of there like crazy. I mean, he already sees a lot of the tankers. But long story short, it's fucked up for the rest of the world to some degree, but it's great for America because they're going to benefit from it. I'm just being straight up honest. Now, I will say this. This is somebody that I actually quoted, one of my Venezuelan friends. It's crazy what they said, but I can relate being from Africa because, and I'm going to say first of all what he said and what the lady said. He said, listen, we got the Russian in the country. We got the Chinese in the country. They're all here for oil. We're not stupid. And we have all the minerals as well. And I know I can relate because in Africa, we have the same thing. But Maduro has been a dictator for a while. That's a fact, right? Boots on the ground, like I say. So if we had to, quote unquote, that's what he said. If we had to, quote unquote, pay and give oil to get rid of the dictator, so we have some level of freedom, and then the rest of the country can at least get developed a little bit. At least America does that a little bit. Like they'll steal, but at least they'll develop you a little bit. Like how they did in Asia. At least it's a better off. And that struck me to my core because I could relate, because we were dealing with the French. They were fucking us over for so long. They call it cooperation, but no, they were just doing the same enslavement bullshit that they were doing back in the 40s. They just call it, cooperation. But basically, we didn't have ownership of nothing. It's like you're a sovereign country, but all the underground is owned by foreign companies. Like what? And then they come in, they say they're gonna make deals. They come, they took billions of dollars worth of uranium, and then they leave, and then they get caught, and then they say, oh, I'm sorry, we forget to pay. How the fuck you forget to pay $2 billion? I mean, it's insane. And then we get the Russian and the Chinese. Hey, they here, they don't care about us in a sense where they want to here do business, make money, send the money back home. But they say, hey, Kareem, we'll do 50-50 with you. We got everything. We're going to steal. We're going to take. We're not going to reinvest in your country, but at least we'll give you 50%. So it's like a less of two evil. Does that make sense? And I think to a better degree, I think that's what's happening to Venezuela, because before it was just way the fuck worse. And it's going to help America. And honestly, helping America helps the rest of the world. That's a reality.
Moving to Venezuela, Kareem. There's opportunity for young guys like you.
Hey, there's always opportunity for those who have the eyes to see for it,
Yeah.
Well, I want to thank all four of you for being on this distinguished panel. I want to make sure we get the word out there that we need to send some Hex and Pulse Chain tablets over there to Greenland, where they're about to get $100,000 stimmy checks.
Yeah.
I heard about that too. Let's send them to some Venezuelan oil overlords too while we're at it.
Greenland is where we're going to be putting the Bitcoin farms. That's why we need Greenland. And by the way, it's going to be renamed to Red, White, and Blue Land.
Let's go. You can save the environment by running pulse chain validators too. Why don't we go around the room real quick and have everybody say where people can find more of your content?
Go first. You guys can find me on Twitter, on the screen at Your Magic, or on IG if you're there, Kareem Crypto 45. But again, for crypto stuff, I'm mainly on Twitter, so feel free to tune in there. And then always a pleasure to be here. Another good conference.
It's called X Grandpa.
Fast Abdul.
I can be found at Fast Abdul, as seen on the screen here on X, and various websites, 2phux.io or vault369.com are a couple projects I'm working on, with links to Telegram there. I will never DM you. All DMs are scams. Stay safe, everybody.
Perfect. Wendy's?
You can find me in the Sparta and Panda X on Pulse Chain Telegram. And yeah.
You guys are really ramping up your community there, so shout out to you.
Yeah. Slowly but surely, but it's got a good core group of hexagons, and that's my goal, is just grow slowly and just get some crazy Spartans.
Yeah, sounds good. Brissology.
I'm Briz. Don't come looking for me. I got the sign on the front yard that says no soliciting, no solicitors. Go away.
What about tablets?
Oh, I love this. No, look at this
Are you
comment.
open
It
for
says send
tablets?
tablets to Greenland residents, especially if they're gonna get $1 million.
Let's
That's a
go.
good idea. Send tablets to Greenland.
Well, thank you all for being on the stream. Fast Abdul is going to stick around for the next panel. We've got a bunch more speakers here coming up in the next hour. So hit the like and subscribe button, share this out, follow all the speakers, and here we go.
Bang, bang.
Bye, guys. Coming for your neck again. This cryptocurrency space ain't ready for us yet again. We're the Hexicans. Yeah, I'm a Hexican. Now, we're the Hexicans. Coming for your neck again. This cryptocurrency space ain't ready for us yet again. We're the Hexicans. Yeah, I'm a Hexican. So, I'm like, bet. How can I invest? He said if you got MetaMask, brother, you set. Now don't forget to write your seed words down. Not your keys, not your crypto, bet. So I step. Richard is a vet. Retired at 23, traveling in jets. He writes self-help books, especially his new book.
What's up, y'all?
Hello.
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 Hey, kids.
How y'all doing?
Plus crispy.
Hey, what's going on?
We got a super veteran panel here of all stars, and yeah, super excited to have everybody on. We can chop it up about Hex for the rest of the hour and see where we get.
Cool. Thanks, Maddie.
What's this Hex you're talking about?
You know, they sponsored the soccer jersey.
It's a six-sided object, and this is the sixth annual conference, so there's got to be something in there.
That's true. How about that? You know, I didn't even put that together. Crazy, man. It's a special year for us.
Yeah,
that's right.
So it's good to see everybody.
Back. I say Hex is coming back.
I mean,
today it's looking good.
It's hopefully found a bottom.
Looks like it.
Riz was just saying last 7 out of 10 days it's been green.
It has been. It has been.
That's my favorite setup right now on Pulse Chain in terms of the cores.
Do explain.
Yeah.
Oh, well, we talked a little bit about it on day one on that panel with Hodful and Gerardo. And it looks like we've got a double bottom forming versus Pulse. And it looks like it might repeat the same pattern we had in 2024. You know, if Big Kurkowski has anything to say about it.
I'm all about the part of the pattern where we went when we went up to 3 cents. That part, that was cool.
Mm-hmm.
I like that part.
I like 3 cents.
Yeah.
We forgot $1. We're just set on 10 cents now.
Yeah, I mean that's what Maddie got Hexo to say he'd come back daily at. So.
Oh really? At 10?
Did I say 10 cents or 3?
He said 10.
Yeah,
so
10 works.
10 works. 10
I mean,
works.
it's not that far away. That
we might get a weekly if we get 3 cents, you know.
Oh, I hear somebody at the door. Might be somebody in the green room, Maddie.
Oh, oops. Hey.
Ding dong.
Whoa, sorry about that.
Dude, you just left me out like that for real?
Gigahex.
We're going to give you the spotlight now.
I was sitting in the corner chair at the hotel. That's how it felt.
Oh.
Wow, you can afford a hotel?
Oh my God.
Not right now, I can't. No. What's up, guys? What's up? Hey, I tried to get my camera set up, and I was like manically going through all of my bins, looking through my cords and devices, and I just couldn't get it done in time. So
at least the effort was there, because I was going to make the comment. So that's good. So
you tried to got me, bro.
We'll take it.
Yeah, they were throwing around some cool numbers in the last session about how little injection needs to happen to see some gains. I mean, Hex is pretty illiquid right now. It's like at $500,000.
On Pulse Chain, $1 million costs 45% in slippage. Like if you put in 1 million DAI, and you want to buy hex, like using like a DEX aggregator like Pidius, you're suffering 45% slippage, which of course is pumping the price. So imagine if 10 million went in, it would be silly.
Where do you guys like to buy hex these days? Like, are you which interface are you using?
I mean, I still find that Piteus is, or Piteus, whatever. I don't know which is the proper way. I still don't. But I still find that that's for hacks at least. I still use that probably the most often.
I switch back and forth between Piteus, Switch dot, I want to say .win, but double check that.
Yeah.
Which is Brandon Davis's new DEX aggregator, and PulseX directly sometimes, because it's not like it, depending on where the funds are going, how big the buy is. Sometimes PulseX still has the best deal.
Yeah, there's actually quite a bit of hex in V3 pools. So using the aggregator for sure is beneficial if you have any size. Like if you're coming in with sizes by hex, you should probably use the aggregator.
100%.
Agreed. Yeah.
There was, I think it was like 50 million, right? On 9mm, 50 million hex up to like 5 cents or something. So there's something there to buy. I don't know if
there's somebody with an order there.
Yeah.
And I guess Switch.win works on Ethereum too as well. I guess is what I heard. And they might be coming out with limit orders on Pulse Chain in the near future. So yeah, like still lots of cool stuff being developed, and you know, we haven't really gotten too much into the debate about eHex or pHex this conference. I think you know, that's been argued out before, and a lot of people are, you know, already said their piece about it. But
we would be running in circles for hours. I feel
right. But yeah,
time, you know?
but so yeah, it's really cool that we have so many exchanges where people are familiar with swapping these. And of course, using the Pulse Chain bridge is another piece of the equation for somebody who's just gotten $1 million because Greenland or America is buying out Greenland. And, you know, so
is it official?
Get started on pulsechain.com. This is evergreen content, you know, so
not according to Denmark, it's not official.
But yeah, like yeah, those are all like tools that people can use, like pulsechain.com, bridge.pulsechain.com. You know, you can move your ETH or USDC over. You can, you know, get onto crypto by going to Coinbase and putting your USD into USDC for no fee. And yeah, hop onto Pulse Chain or get some eHex or pHex using one of those sites we mentioned. That's how it's done.
That is currently how it's done. Although I will say that I hope for a world in the future where there's another piece of the puzzle that exists that helps this to move faster even.
What could that be?
I think that it also has an X in the name. But there's and its sacrifice just ended today.
So that's pretty neat. Like very within an hour or two, I think.
Within a couple hours ago, yeah. So you know, we'll all hold tight and hope that some tokens come along with, if you know, maybe or not or whatever.
Can we go around the room maybe, and people can say like where you're at with Hex these days, and what you think of ProveX?
Oh, sure. Where I'm at with Hex, I have a lot and like it, and wish it was at a higher price. Right now, I feel as if we're in the middle of one of those 80% dips that we've had over the years, although somewhat feels like we're coming out of it. I also really am jazzed about ProveX. I've done some research on the underlying technology, and I think that there's something there, and I think that it could be very useful. I think it already is. Like the ZK stuff that's being built on is already something that is a useful piece of technology. And so finding faster ways to get to Pulse or to get to whatever crypto you want, hopefully using some infrastructure that we all have an opportunity to hold some of. I think it's fantastic. I think that's actually really neat. I think that's as we were just on a talk the other day. He was on right after me yesterday. Buck was saying, all of those other previous experiences that you mentioned are like a little like going to North Korea. It's like it takes a lot to get to Pulse. You have all these different. There's like a couple roads in, and they're fraught with fear. So like having faster, more useful ways to get in and out of Pulse, and ways where people could use our technology without even necessarily needing the chain itself. Or needing to know that they're using it, is fantastic. And more coins get burnt, which is good for everybody holding. So I think that
to be clear, when I was advocating for people going to North Korea yesterday, it was because that was being used as a metaphor for hex.
Yes. I'm not actually. This is just a metaphorical term to say that it is more difficult to get the Pulse than it is to get to some other places out there in the world. United doesn't exactly fly charter flights every hourly in and out of there. So whatever that is for everybody else, some say it's an opportunity. Others say more bridges or more roads in and out are better. So shout out to all those folks that are making roads in and out of Hexaco. However they are. I'm not trying to shit on anybody's Switch.win or Peacock or whatever, Liberty Swap or whoever, anybody's jazz that they're doing, that they whatever way that they want to get in, totally cool with. Just saying that the general public want it faster, and they want to know less about it all than we do. So I'd like to tell them less and get them things faster. So
absolutely. Whitney, you're up next.
Hey. With Hex, I mean, I'm still Hexagon. And just what's going on liquidity wise in the world, I think it's just more of a macro game. So just holding tight. Nothing's really changed besides price does its thing, but look around at the crypto world. So I'm still sitting over here. A lot of ladies in my world still are like, we love Pulse Chain. We love Hex. We're here for it. We're waiting for it. I'm still reminded of the community of all of us of why we're here. The cryptos that still have life in the crypto world are because of people, and it's because of adoption. And so you can't kill us. That has been one great thing within our whole ecosystem. And it's just a matter of who, what, when, what tipping points are going to be for our next level of adoption. So it's a great reminder for me when I constantly see so many people grinding for our bags, and we never know which things are going to hit and who's going to continue to spread the right word to the right people. So that's where I sit with Hex, of just holding tight, and it is what it is, but the whole crypto world is just not looking bright. I mean, just it's not looking good at this time because of what's going on with liquidity in the world. But liquidity has to change at some point. It can't stay down forever. Financial worlds are all about cycles. So that's where I sit with Hex. With ProveX, honestly, I haven't gone as far into to have an opinion strong enough. I've been happy with where I've been with my bags, and I don't really have much to say.
Awesome. Yeah. And are you still onboarding women into crypto, or are you still guiding people who have already discovered it?
Yeah. And one thing that ladies mostly enjoy right now a lot is we've been diving really deep into the macroeconomic side of things. So it's like, as crypto investors, for all of us, many of us have had to learn how the macro speak works, but then also how power flows in the world. So the thing that most ladies are most intrigued with at this time is being like, what is going on? And that helps soothe their nervous system, soothe their bags, to be like, okay, this is a cycle, this is a time. What would be the things that help tip crypto back to the green? So it's just understanding more of what goes on. But yeah, still onboarding plenty of ladies into crypto. And then also just helping ladies with now money identity and like how to build personal financial systems to be able to help us in the time when this market fully hasn't moved. It's like, how do you have systems to prepare yourself for when the market does tip?
Right. Awesome. Yeah. Well, let's glad to hear you're still doing outreach and guiding people to have a healthier financial future. We'll snake our way around the room here and go to Crispy next.
So set me up, Maddie. What's the question?
So where are you at with Hex these days? And what do you think of this whole ProveX thing?
Prove it. Prove it. Where am I with Hex? Well, I stream about it quite a bit. And I keep talking about Hex. And I'm super focused on Hex staking, which is exactly the contrary play. Can't get more contrary than staking anything that you would have to lock up for a long period of time. Right. And so it's kind of, you know, I don't want to really compare it to other things per se, but you know how we talk about politics and religion don't mix real well at family dinners. Well, it's kind of the same with the idea of chasing shiny things that go way up and staking Hex. Right. So we have a mindset out there of people that, you know, listen, I'm not looking to convince anybody to do anything, right? But they're definitely not interested in staking Hex. And they're not interested in staking Hex long, for sure. And but there is a small group of people that are dedicated to it, like super dedicated, about 100, 200 people, maybe, count by the wallets, and they're continuing to stake along. And so yeah, I mean, there's a lot of activity within Hex, but I think we're kind of moving to those who are true believers in the product market fit, have a substantial R&R, right? Risk reward. It can go to zero like anything, right? Do I think it will? No, but you know, it's crypto. But one thing's for sure with the Hex staking and how it's set up and the OA has made its moves, you can pretty much dominate having Hex in 15 years if you like, you know, player versus player. What will that be worth? You have to tell me. I don't know. All right. So that's the whole Hex side of it. And I honestly, guys, I don't think Hex staking will recover. I do not. And that actually is a very good thing for me. I think it's a good thing for me, and it's good for other people that are staking. Now, the reason I say that is I'm not sure how you unwind this whole thing to convince people that 4% APR is better than chasing the next, well, just say pump tires, you know, option, right? Where you see hundreds of X or thousands of X on somebody's token on a day. Because what is normal crypto? Normal crypto is that. I mean, that is normal crypto. That's what people are in crypto for. Right now, does that mean that Hex staking going to be bad? No, I think it can be really good. You know, and I think long term, the people who are staking going to earn outsized gains in terms of Hex. So that's where I am with the whole Hex thing. But hopefully I'll be proven wrong, right? And there'll be like millions of people going to say, I really want to do it. But I think what we're going to see instead is I said, I think it's not going to turn around, but I think there are opportunities for other tools and things to be brought out that will make, just like Big K was saying, it's going to make Hex staking invisible, but they'll get the benefit from it. And so we'll see what kind of technology that might look like, how that might come about. But you envision the world where, you know, you can be on Robinhood or some other app and you push the button and you don't even know you're backed by Hex, but you are.
Cool.
So that kind of a jump the shark. And that's kind of a segue into the ProveX. I don't know about anybody else, but I've read some of the stuff about the ZK stuff and ProveX and what that looks like. And, you know, Fast talks a lot and talks really fast. And I've been watching what he posts and we see other people. I don't know anything about what the hell it's going to do other than it's supposed to make things really seamless. But I, you know, just like the tongue-in-cheek post from Richard, what's it going to be paired with? What chain is it going to be on? I don't know. Nobody's really confirmed anything yet. I make some assumptions, but I'm excited about it. It would be nice to see something that'll probably fly. And I've been listening to Buck quite a bit when he and Dylan were
Mhm.
going back and forth yesterday on that. So it's pretty funny. But so I'm bullish.
For what it's worth, I don't think that the post from Richard was tongue in cheek. I think, like, kind of a cynical attitude is taken over. And if we go back to the Hex history, when Hex was being developed, like, Richard asked geniuses for help. When Pulse Chain was being developed, there was the PLS planning committee of 75 people. And so, like, when he asks, like, what should I pair this with? How much liquidity should be there? I like definitely take him at his word that he probably already has good ideas, but he's looking for more good ideas in a very serious way. So for what it's worth, but I could be wrong. But that at least presents the opportunity for people, like, I think people should feel like they can contribute ideas, because that's something I've observed be like a successful thing over the entire history of Hex and Pulse Chain. It's like, when somebody says, hey, the Hex yield is too high, even if it's an unpopular thing, the OA changes it, and there's lots of different examples of things going right, because, Dev Kyle, like, he said, hey, I ran these Monte Carlo simulations, and like longer doesn't pay better in the original design. And that got fixed.
I don't know if you've heard me talk about the 15-year cycle, right? So I'm sorry to interrupt you, but made me think about that, right?
Oh, please.
I don't think Richard reacted at all to people talking about whether or not the reward was too high on Hex. He knew about that for years. He talked about it, back in 21 or 22 on some of his podcasts that he was on. This was very deliberate. The people who wanted to get into Hex and did, who I call believers, got a bunch of Hex. And now they have the opportunity to either continue to believe or not. And so far, while lots of people believe in the speculation of Hex price, not necessarily buying into the staking of it, which just means that this refined group of people is just going to have even more opportunity, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Let's go to Access Alive to chime in or to answer the original question.
Mm-hmm. So we've been talking about Hex for a long time. And I don't know, I kind of see it as like that P-Hex and E-Hex are both important to the cause, for one. And I think that if we want to get a lot of attention, like, the easiest way is to make E-Hex go crazy. Now, whether or not that's going to happen or not is kind of up to the community or maybe a couple of whales. Currently, like, it sits like 65% off the all-time low versus Ethereum. So it's like basically the cheapest it's ever been versus Ethereum. So the opportunity is like tremendous there. And, in terms of like getting a centralized exchange listing, if that were to ever happen, I think E-Hex is probably a logical first step. And then on like the P-Hex side of things, like, it has the best setup versus Pulse out of any of the core tokens right now, in my opinion. And currently it's like putting in on the indicators, we're starting to see a potential reversal. And we talked about this the other day. Like, if people were getting 2,000 Pulse for a Hex during the original Pulse Chain SAC, and we're sitting at 184 Pulse for a Hex today, I mean, it's just crazily undervalued in those terms. And so I just think that it's got a ton of upside potential in conjunction with like the low liquidity. So it's not going to take a lot of energy to get things exciting again. And then once you get the thing exciting again, a lot of things change for the system. Like, staking yields go up. Every doubling, staking yields start to compound, right, and go exponential. And I do think if Hex is successful long term, it's going to be because people are buying Hex at 10 cents and staking it. And at that point, it will be a little juicier. So there's like a lot of factors that come into play there that makes the system more exciting and more enticing the higher the price goes. And it will be a repeat of what we saw with the original Hex. And Hex's my biggest core holding. Has been for a long time. I think Hex is still the gem out of the bunch. I really like Pulse and PulseX and Inc. They're fine. I just think that Hex is the reason why we're all here, and the community still stands strong, and there's a lot of people still invested in it. So I really like Hex. I think it's a great setup. There's a lot more to say about that. Like, we have really cool products that have been built on it. And thank you, Crispy, for not saying it first so I could steal that. But like, you have Communis, right? So that thing has done crazy price action, and when that does well, it incentivizes more Hex staking because of the instant rebate that you get for staking Hex and then minting it. And then on top of that, we have our you got the icosahedron protocol in conjunction with Actuator, which basically has allowed us to create a bond market so that you can manage your risk in Hex. And that's really going under the radar. I think there's a little bit of a cult following starting to curate there, and more people will see the value in that after the early adopters are well positioned. That's my belief. And I think with any luck, you'll continue to see people building cool tools and interfaces for Hex, and combining a lot of these ideas together to make the on-ramping process easier, but also to make it much more understandable to just the average user. So there's like a lot of cool opportunities here. Imagine, like, give you a theoretical would be like, imagine a centralized exchange or a billionaire, anyone with a lot of money comes in and buys up all the Hex up to, like, let's say 5 cents, and then supports it there. They can then get a staking yield and support it for long enough to make sure everyone else has to come in behind them. So it's a really great opportunity in that regard as well. And it will align someone like a centralized exchange to list Hex, and they'll be getting paid double. They'll be doubling down and getting paid to do it, right? By utilizing the immutable contract the way it's meant to be used. And then inside of all that, you're going to get some volatility and opportunity for regular retail traders and whatnot, like a lot of, typical people that are in the system right now. So I think, I like Hex. And that's why I'm here. I've been supporting it, promoting it for years. I think it's, the OA is a question mark for some people, but generally speaking, I think Hex is a great opportunity. I guess I'll stop there. But then with ProveX, I really like some of the narrative that's been popularized by Buck, for example, about the low valuation to start. And as far as the tooling, it can be the most coolest tool anyone's ever seen, but we need the users to get there. So that's kind of where it falls in the hands of the marketers, and the marketers is the community. We have a great community. I think if a lot of these things start to align with price action, we're going to see really good things happen. And my big question mark is, how is ProveX liquidity deployed, and where is it deployed? Because any changes to the PulseX farm could ignite another wave of excitement for our ecosystem.
Cool. Cliffhanger there. Rachel, Crypto Bestie.
Let's see, where am I at with Hex? Well, I am definitely a long-term type of girl. And so I am staked, and that's where I'm at. I like Hex too. And so I'm not going anywhere when it comes with that. I'm not selling or emergency unstaking. It'd be silly for me to do that. So I like Hex. And then with ProveX, I also just kind of like Whitney, I don't know a ton about it. I did sacrifice for it. Was really excited about that. And yeah, I don't know a ton about it outside of, just the tweets that we've gotten, but I'm looking forward to seeing what it is. And I'm hoping that, it is going to be just as great as we all think it's going to be.
Awesome. And I want to shout you out here, and again at the end of the program, that you're totally volunteering to help run the Hex conference, and it wouldn't be possible without you running the green room. So thank you so much for doing that all these 4 nights.
Oh yeah, thanks for having me. It's been a lot of fun. I get to see all my friends. It's been great, so thanks.
Awesome. And Giga, we're up to you now.
All right. So you want my opinion on Hex, huh?
Or where are you at with it now?
No, I mean, I still love Hex, and the weird thing is like seeing how many units you can get now. And I hate that I've heard that for so long now. And it always like kind of made me cringe a little bit, right? But now I'm like, oh, it truly is like the amount of Hex that you can get for what we were buying it for. Like I bought all the way from like 35 cents down, man. So like as much as I get made fun of for these things, um, I started buying back then, and I look at it now and I go, I personally feel like it's foolish of me not to take the opportunity, if you're capable of doing it, because the existence of this whole ecosystem, I feel like is kind of like Hex was the foundation of it all. So if you know if anything were to happen, I feel like Hex kind of like leads the way or finishes it, and in Richard's ecosystem. So yeah, and as far as Hex goes, I actually haven't made any more stakes. I will admit to that, but I do have a ton of 555 stakes anyway that have been still, you know, just ticking away over the years. So, but yeah, accumulating more. I also am a very big believer in Pulse X, and I think that with the Prove X sacrifice that Richard's doing, that you kind of have this synergy between the two of them. So you know, if you get users with Prove X, you know, Pulse X is like it's like supercharging the thing. So I'm really excited to see how all of these things work out. If there's going to be a farms for the Prove X coins. You know, if there's just going to be like starting with no liquidity or starting with a ton of liquidity. I think there's just a lot of you know, interesting things that could occur over the next, you know, few months. Probably I would imagine he's launching the coin pretty much immediately. By that I mean within the next few months, relative to the protocol. So that's what I look forward to, you know, and that's why I'm still here. You know.
Yeah, respect. And you're on Twitter Spaces a lot, educating people on with Tam and others. So yeah, shout out to you. It seems like you have a very deep understanding of like the chain analysis in terms of watching big wallets and kind of anticipating things and
Right.
understanding game theory.
Well, like back in the day, you know, back when Hex was starting, you know, all of the normal influencer type of people kind of, you know, all repeated the Richard talking points and stuff. So I kind of sat back a little bit, right, and watched, and I would just, you know, bull post on Twitter. But now I feel like we've entered this era where there's you know, this huge amount of criticism, and you still have all of these guys with these huge Hex stakes that are even criticizing still. And it's like, where did your mentality go? It's like the price is the only thing that's changed, and yet you're speaking completely differently of it. So like over the years, I've just been accumulating all this knowledge of how these systems work, and in just crypto in general. And it's like, I was like, what better time than now when everyone is literally fudding their bags that they have staked out for 10 more years or whatever, than to try to actually rally the community together and educate them on a more deep level, I guess, in some ways, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah. Fast Abdul, let's go to you now.
Okay. So as far as Hex goes, Axis took most of the good DeFi stuff, but he missed one, which was the Maximus DAO tokens, so tokenized Hex stakes. The cool thing about Hex to me is that it's immutable code, meaning the code can never be changed. So it allows people to build on top of it. So we get things like ICOSA, like tokenized Hex stakes. We can have things like Maximus DAO tokens where you can buy a piece of a 15-year Hex stake, or a 10-year, or a 7-year, or a 3-year, or a 1-year. I think maybe I missed a 7-year in there as well. So we have all these cool things you can do with Hex. And you know, it lends itself to all sorts of interesting low and permanent loss farming situations and stuff like that that I really like with my own protocols and other people's protocols. So that's my main focus there. As far as Prove X goes, I could say I'm more excited about that because it's the new thing on the shelf. But I'm excited about different things than what other people are. Like you guys talked about, token price appreciation and stuff like that. I've been doing a deep dive into the tech, and it's not something everybody's going to be able to pick up right away. But there's one concept I want people to understand is ProveX will have the ability to connect Web 2 with Web 3. So Web 2 is regular internet website stuff. So that's where you do your banking. It's where you renew your Netflix subscription, where you go on X, all that kind of thing. Web 3 is crypto, right? Right now they're pretty much disconnected. ProveX will allow one to prove to the other that something happened. And the applications for that are worth trillions of dollars. So we have things like subscriptions for, like for YouTube, for X, for Netflix, could be set up to be paid with crypto using ProveX or something like ProveX, because it would be able to prove to X that like, oh yes, this is Fast Abdul's account, and yes, he did indeed pay this month, right? So, and that's a capability that's not really out there in a practical, reoccurring way in crypto right now. You could have things like insurance claims that were automatic, right? Where like, oh, your flight is now 4 hours late. Okay, here's your $700 insurance payment, because it can immediately be verified in Web 2 and then connect with Web 3 and pay you right away, right? And that like I said, flights, but that could be weather, that could be farm insurance, like for farmers in Africa, right? Where they could deposit something like, and this is obviously a build on top thing. This won't be an out of the box model, but they could put in $100 worth of Ethereum to insure their crops for $10,000 if there's a drought that year, right? Like it has world changing potential effects if done correctly. So like when we look at what's going on in the world right now with crypto, and we look at like these big entities starting to move into crypto, they're going to be looking for ways to prove that they have the crypto. So we can look at like a global commerce back end type situation where they're going to want to prove to the regular world, which we'll call the Web 2 world, that they have the Web 3 crypto in the Web 3 world, and ProveX could be the package to do that, right? So like it's not just going to be something where people can effectively use it to bridge onto Pulse chain via like sort of a trustless OTC proof of payment method, which is cool and huge and is going to open up all kinds of doors for us, but it can be used to like do things that people aren't even thinking of yet. Like there could be a system set up where you make a payment from like your debit card, essentially like Venmo, something like that, like with fiat currency that goes in and then buys Hex and stakes it for 15 years. That's something that ProveX could help enable, because it would be able to prove that one thing happened, which could trigger the other things to happen. So it's like the potential for it to be something that people can build on, just like Actuator, Maximus DAO, Calm built on top of Hex is completely there. And it's like not something that's just going to affect Pulse Chain or just going to affect Hex, but it certainly will affect Pulse Chain and affect Hex. Richard asked earlier today how much liquidity should go into ProveX and on what chains. I think we're going to see a multi-chain situation as far as people using it, and a multi-chain situation as far as the liquidity goes. And then that's going to flow over into fiat currency. Like all roads are going to lead to ProveX, and they're all going to touch Pulse Chain, and they're all going to touch Hex. And I don't think it's going to be boring.
I'll put you down in the bull category then.
Yeah, that's it.
Awesome. Yeah, well,
I love all that.
Yeah, you're spitting fire. And I guess to like give my answer before we move on to the next question, like, yeah, I'm still in Hex because I believed in the principles from the beginning. The like delaying gratification, proof of weight, having immutable code, and like, like creating a community of people who are long-term minded, delaying gratification, being in something for 15 years is like unheard of in crypto. And so the reason I am still involved and excited about Hex is because I do see, like I have seen a wave of people that came in just for price appreciation. And I think the fact that the price is down now is like returning us to, having to talk about, well, what were the core principles, and, like move away from some of the moon boy stuff and like talk about, well, what's really here. And I think with Hex in particular, staking it now is particularly interesting because it's hard to fathom like how much reflexivity and price appreciation can now be transferred into the chart of Hex, whereas before a lot of it was going into staking rewards. And so when you had people getting 30%, 50%, 90% APY in the early days, you had, not all the price appreciation was showing up on the chart. There was 10,000x from the bottom to the top, but that didn't include the extra 10,000x that you would have gotten from staking and unstaking, at a lucky time. And so basically, I think now that the staking rewards have been decreased, like you could see more reflexivity than you've ever seen in the past. And that's kind of an interesting setup. When it comes to ProveX, yeah, like I'm super excited for the reasons that Fast Abdul said. It is the first time that Richard Hart has tried something new, I'd say, since Hex. It's a $1 trillion industry of like trust. And you have SSL certificates that just aren't being used, like for their crypto application. So this is a completely new area that can not only transform a digital finance with the transparency and honesty of crypto, but it can also be used to prove lots of other important things. We know that if we got quantum computing tomorrow, like it wouldn't just be Bitcoin that's at risk, but like national security and all these types of things in the modern era that need to be encrypted because they're valuable. And I think having a way to prove through crypto with these SSL certificates and whatnot, I think the value goes beyond finance. So super excited about that and the low valuation. I was wrong about when Pulse Chain would come out, but I've also been right about some important stuff. Like I said that the OA would sacrifice for Pulse Chain and PulseX whenever nobody could fathom that. And so my prediction for PulseX or for ProveX is that it will come out this month, because of the hints Richard has said about it can launch before the protocol is ready. It can, he wants to know how much liquidity and what to pair with. So yeah, that's my answer. And I guess to go around the room again, maybe a more rapid round this time. I'd love to hear from everybody. Like if you were onboarding a person who's close to you nowadays, would you recommend that they buy Hex and hold it liquid, stake it, or what ratio there? Big K. I know I don't know, maybe this is gonna be redundant because we've all already talked to everybody who who wants to hear about it, but it's still a fun thought experiment.
I mean, anybody recently I've told they might want to buy this ProveX stuff in the past couple weeks or so. I'm not gonna lie, I just think that there's a unique opportunity here.
And what kind of ratio did you recommend to people in terms of sacrificing in a pool or waiting to buy a dip?
Man, let me tell you what, me telling people what to do with their percentages and their money is something that if I get onboard somebody, me personally, hey, you should probably have this, right? And I get them a wallet and I get them some coins and I send them myself. The first thing I do is I take some of the Hex and usually a quarter to a half of whatever I give them, which is not a ton, to start, just something to try it out with. And I'll get them to do a 15-year stake. We'll just do that to start. It's like everything else they can work back from. You can see that for as long as you have the rest of the wallet, you're going to have that there. And I'm not telling them to put a whole bunch in there. Usually it's my own. I'm the one pushing for them to do it, but very often it does get them to consider their long-term options and put a couple longer stakes out. But that's just as a mental thing for them, for me, for how the system works. I want them to get, now they're they have the 15-year stake. It's a thing, So that's how. But as far as like percentage wise, I don't know, man. It depends on the person. It depends on how they feel about stuff. And I usually try and like give them some. I'm not trying to force them into knowing, like I'm not the one that like, I'm like, you can make your own decisions on that.
Fair enough. Well, that sounds like a balanced approach of like gifting people and letting them decide. Um, Whitney, I guess we can update the question here to say like somebody has $10,000. They never want to see again. And what do you recommend in terms of Hex, Approve X, or anything else?
Big K, you got the hard ones. You were like trying to go between the lines of not going too much financial advice. You got the tough ones. I would do Hex and Pulse X are my two faves. So heavier along there. I would toss some Prove X in there along with then just Pulse and a little bit ink, but percentage wise, probably 60 to 70% split between with Pulse X and Hex, and then a little bit less for everything else.
Awesome. And this might be like super obvious to all of us on screen, but for the hundreds or the thousands of people that watch live and on replay, I guess I should technically point out that it is too late to sacrifice for ProveX now. And so like, do not sacrifice for ProveX. The time has expired, and we're hoping that it'll launch soon, but it might be sometime. We don't really know. Crispy, you're up.
All right, Maddie. I think diversification is good in a general sense. And like Big K, I'm not telling anybody what to do. So they can figure that out. But if you ask me what I would think about the Hex thing, you talked about having liquid versus staked. I'd probably, good thumb rule. Some people say 10%, 20% or something. Keep it liquid. That's fine. Based on what they're doing. The rest of it, I'd be going into Hex through very long stakes using the actuator protocol, which is one of those things that's been built on it, which allows you to have access to the liquidity sooner based on the market, and opens up optionality, which is a little bit of a different move because those are HSI stakes, Hex staking instances, and that's where I'd go.
Cool. Yeah, we're getting a variety of answers. I like that. Axis, you're up.
All right. So if somebody wants to buy Hex, I would say they're probably going to want to hedge that. Whatever they hold liquid, they're going to want to hedge like 10 to 20% with like a 15-year stake, because the gains that, in the event that this is successful, and when I say successful, I mean like over 10-cent Hex long term. In that event, if you put up 10 to 20% of whatever you buy for 15 years, it's going to do at least a 6x on top of the gains that you get from 0.3 of a cent today to 10 cents. So it doesn't take a lot but it needs to be for a long time. I wouldn't really suggest staking for less than 10 years. Like, I think the 15-year stake and the rolling ladder is a really good play. And as you make gains over the years with your liquid bag, the remaining 80%, maybe you decide to buy dips with your profit, and then you end up with more units, and then you can stake more later and keep that rolling ladder going. So eventually you want to have a 15-year stake coming off every year perpetually. And I think a good place to start is like 80-20.
Cool. Yeah, great answer. Rachel?
It's a good question. I'm not going to give percentages or anything like that, but whenever I onboard someone or try to introduce them to the Pulse Chain world, I'm always just trying to teach them what is crypto at a basis. And so obviously staking is super important. I also love when people get to learn what farming is and what liquidity is and liquidity pairs and everything like that. And so what I would bring someone to is to actually have them try to do all of those different things, so then they can actually really learn like what is crypto and how does this work, and when I buy something, what is happening within the system, and what does like the liquidity of everything mean. So I don't usually like to tell people what to do with their money either, because it's not financial advice ever. But wanting to teach people so they actually understand what is a blockchain and what does crypto mean.
Yeah, people learn a lot by doing, and giving people a sampler platter of all the different things they can do is a good way to show them what they might be interested in. Awesome. Giga,
All right. So
not
I pretty much
financial advice,
right,
but
right. So not financial advice, but no, I pretty much agree with Rachel. So like I it's for the past few years, I've actually I've onboarded quite a few people into crypto because you know, they know me for this in real life. And I actually have directed them towards ETH. So I was telling everyone to kind of buy ETH because I was like, well, you know, in my head, I was telling like myself, oh, they'll probably get a 3, 4, 5x off of ETH. And then I can kind of, you know, they'll be more interested. This is how it happened in 2019 for me. I was shilling Ethereum to a literal hedge fund. And, you know, these people were the same people who were then messaging me later interested in getting into Hex after they saw the gains that they made on Ethereum. So my angle was originally to get these people into Ethereum and you know, after it moves to get them into Hex. So it's been a challenge this cycle with as you know, kind of stable as Ethereum has been. But when people do ask to kind of move that Ethereum into something maybe more risky or start getting interested in meme coins, I kind of look at and I say, well, like if you want to take some portion of that and go into, you know, what I'm interested in, I always point to PulseX and Hex. And that's because from my point of view, well, so previously it was Ink. I was a very big Ink shiller. I shilled Ink very hard because I saw Ink and Hex both as endpoints, meaning that they had the ability to move in a more volatile way than everything else on the chain. And then recently we saw, you know, some addresses that may or may not be linked to some large entity that were just like aping PulseX super hard. And then Richard was tweeting very bullish about PulseX. So I kind of pivoted to just PulseX and Hex. And the reasoning again is because they're some of the thinnest you know, endpoints of Richard Hart coins on the chain. And I just see the if you're interested in speculation, it's like your best bet. It's basically these things have less liquidity than like some popular dog meme coins right now. And yet we have 100 times the community. And it's like, how can you not see that there's absolutely value there? It's just not, you know, of interest in the moment in terms of like the culture or you know, maybe with Richard in the case, not being able to be as vocal, whatever it is, there's absolutely obviously value there. So yeah, for sure. Just PulseX and Hex are like my big kind of like, you know, if you're in Ethereum, kind of move some into those two things.
Nice. Yeah, great answer. Fast Abdul.
With Hex, my main interest has always been around the DeFi stuff. So when I talk to people about it, often I'm mentioning things like Maximus DAO tokens, the actuator, things you can do with Hex as far as farming and low or no impermanent loss pairs. So it's not really first tier onboarding. You know, it's not the stuff I bring up in a first conversation. I've gone the way of Giga in that like people I've onboarded very recently into crypto, I'm pushing them into Bitcoin and Ethereum, right? Like things that they can easily understand. But like some people are starting to trickle over to the Pulse Chain side. It's just one extra step. When ProveX comes out, I think that will actually make it easier to onboard people directly into Pulse Chain because I think it could reduce the number of steps. Even like with fiat direct to Pulse Chain, direct to Hex type options being available. I think fiat direct to staked Hex options would be really, really cool. So I hope somebody who's listening is working on that. Because yeah, I think the code will allow that, and that could be great. Where it could be like, from your bank account, like $700 5 years, $1,000 for 10 years. Like you could build a staking ladder right there. That'd be pretty cool. With ProveX, there is a great unknown there. So I'm sharing with the community on X, of course, my thoughts, but I'm not going to say that I'm reaching out to my buddies to say like, hey guys, go all in on this one, except for one or two that I know are, have that risk profile. But I think the like long term, or well, midterm, I think a lot of us are going to be shilling ProveX because it's going to be pretty interesting in the next couple months. I'm with you, Maddie, in that I think the timeline for a token is going to be short. In my mind, I have it pegged at 2 weeks. It like we could have a ProveX token inside of 2 weeks. The sacrifice set's relatively small compared to PulseX or Pulse. It's the kind of thing that, like, I don't know, maybe 48 hours in Excel spreadsheet, you could probably figure out, if indeed the points do end up being tokens, it wouldn't take that long to figure out how many tokens that each player should get. So I think we could see that on a very short timeline. I think all the timelines with Richard Hart are very intentional. So like things happen at certain times for certain reasons, sad things, happy things. And I think with ProveX that he's going to want to have a token that comes out very soon and an app that comes out not too long after. So we could be looking at 2 weeks for the token and 3 months for the application. Seems definitely possible. Not financial advice.
Awesome. Yeah. Good stuff. And yeah, I mean, I would, for my answer, I guess it would, like, since ProveX is kind of over now, I would I would like make it dependent on, like, well, is the opening price less than the sacrifice pool price? And if that was the case, yeah, I'd be going all in at that level. And also a huge fan of PulseX and Hex, probably equally at this time, although I think Pulse and PulseX are pretty evenly matched in terms of how well they can do at size. You got some trade-offs there, but they're both probably headed in the same direction nevertheless. So yeah, this is so cool. And I've been really grateful to have all of you amazing speakers on as this last panel. If we can go around the room real quickly and you could tell people where to find more of your content, that'd be great.
You can find me at Big Kurkowski on Twitter and on Telegram. You can find me at the Hex Happy Hour too, as well, at cabandacrypto.com.
Are you guys going to be back to doing that regularly, or do we have to hit a certain?
Yeah, we've got more information stuff happening, so I hopefully regularly. I mean, like we've been trying to keep it regular, but at least once a month. But maybe we'll do it at least 2 or 3 times a month. There's more stuff is happening. There's, I'm more interested to come on and talk.
Awesome. Sounds good.
Hey, you can find me on Instagram largely these days, Whitney Woodcock with an underscore at the end, or on Substack, Whitney Woodcock over there as well.
Awesome. Crispy?
Hexfire.io. Everywhere.
Alrighty. If you can find me on Twitter and YouTube at Access Alive, or come visit accessalive.com.
You can find me at It's Crypto Bestie everywhere.
Awesome.
All right, guys. Gig of the Minter. Gigoftheminter.com is like all the little things I've been vibe coding and playing around with. So
I can be found at Festive Duel as displayed on the screen, or pretty much any YouTube channel that's talking about Hex or Pulse Chain.
Awesome. I'm MATI all in on everything. If people want to donate to the conference, Maddie.eth or Maddie.pls. Definitely want to thank Rachel for making the conference possible by running the backstage. Want to thank let's see, Switch.win for making a donation to the conference to help us not be in the red so much. And all the about 50 speakers that we had, it's been a huge honor. And I think it's really been impressive this year, just as impressive as it was a couple of years ago when Hex was kind of at a low point. The community all showed up for the conference anyway, and good things happened shortly thereafter. And so I'm optimistic about this space. I'm excited that there are so many people still active and that so many people participated, whether they've spoken at every Hex conference for 6 years or whether it's been a while since they spoke at one. I really appreciated all the speakers, and I wish that Richard would have had time to make a video here for the conference. The last time that he was live to this date is still exactly 3 years ago on the 4th day of the Hex conference. And so it made sense to leave a spot for him. But he definitely has a Christmas video that was posted recently that people can go watch. I think not that many people have seen it compared to his other videos. And I think there's like a lot of good stuff that can come with him launching ProveX and everything that's happening. So with that being said, go ahead and hit the like and subscribe button. Make sure to follow all these speakers here and show your appreciation to them. And until next time, stay wisely,
Thanks,
my
Mandy.
friends. Peace out. Thank you, guys.
Sacrificing all this bread like I'm Richard Hart. Got paid on big payday and I had a hairy start. Now I'm checking on my pulse just to check my heart. Checking my MetaMask moving. Look at the Hex, he is mooning. Looking at wives they be choosing. Peter is why they be losing. Pull chains out, now get me a check. He's gas up and it got me a mess. Remember the times he died collect. Hex, I been eating, I'm dying in the best. Getting this back like a year ago. Getting this post, I ain't letting go. Swerving the ring like a Lambo. Getting this back like a year ago. Getting this post, I ain't letting go. Swerving the ring like a Lambo.